session
You have to say with the intent of returning
with the intent of returning
to full and open session.
to open session.
And give the reason according to board docs. Do you have the,
Give the reason.
Right, yeah, I was just about to get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking at that. In preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. Police chief and deputy police chief, and to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with collective bargaining unit. NEPBA local 114 public safety telecommunicators.
Second,
thank you. All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
Didn't we just do your contract?
No, it was over a year ago.
Oh,
I mean, I would have if I didn't. We didn't even ask.
The thing is, you dad watch them by my house all the time. And so any exercise regimen? Oh, my wife was telling me that when they should-
Great. Just approved, was that just August, that's September 17th?
I know, yes.
So not.
No, no, yes. Like, sometimes
I don't know if I have to tell someone, but I wanted to make a public statement. from
Yeah,
Green Maynard.
the chairman who is remote, he will call upon.
Oh, okay.
No problem, Maureen.
Mr. Wolf
Yes.
working for,
Oh, good. Okay, perfect.
How'd you get in?
I punched it.
How'd you cut?
Bang the side a couple of times like.
Fonzie? You did the Fonzie? How did you find?
So it must have been updating behind the scenes once it came over.
Yeah, I think it was-
Once it came on. it kicked that really, so.
So they were blaming Greg for.
No, it wasn't.
Greg, can you let me know when we're ready to go?
Right out there, so it's just,
Yeah, right.
So did me, because the principal didn't get paid. Make sure that you.
Okay, Jeff, we're good.
Great. David, would you mind leading the group in the room in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I would not mind. Would everybody please rise and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good evening. This open meeting of the Select Board is being conducted both in person and via Zoom. Speakers on the agenda will be participating remotely, and the chair may allow for the public to provide comment. The board would like to hear public comments, and if there is further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to within the confines of the open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to individual attendees unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, so please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All the materials for this meeting, except any executive session materials, are available on Board Docs, and we recommend that members of the public follow the agenda as posted on Board Docs unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items of public comment, after the members have spoken, the chair may afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a full list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Public comment for public hearings will only be accepted in person per open meeting law. And we will now turn to the first item on our agenda, which is public comments. The board would like to hear public comments, and if there's further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to, within the confines of open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. And so I will ask anybody who is in the room to come forward if they wish to make a public comment. And Orion, I see you there. So please come on up and speak directly into the owl if you could.
I'm Orion Green, speaking for Green Maynard. Green Maynard wholeheartedly supports the development of additional affordable housing in the town of Maiden as an essential and inclusive and sustainable future. But we are concerned about the proposed location of a 200-unit complex at 182 Parker Street, given the importance of the surrounding residents and the nearby public water supply. Maynard recently passed an overlay district on Powder Mill Road, an MBTA community zone where exactly this sort of development is encouraged without these concerns. This Powder Mill corridor passed easily at town meeting, and town staff and residents have been working to increase the availability of rentals there with a particular focus on affordable units. 182 Parker Street is the wrong location. It falls within Zone 2 of the town's crucial wellheads, and historical land clearance from adjacent town development has negatively impacted these wells. Stormwater runoff entering the well aquifer from this site will potentially degrade water quality, and Maynard's lack of redundant water resources makes it impossible to take a well offline without threatening the town's water supply. 182 Parker Street is also in an area with high value wetlands, home to protected and vulnerable wildlife and hydrologically connected to the Assabet River National Wildlife Refuge. The property does not contain toxic substances or polluted sites that require remediation. From an environmental standpoint, this means the land is optimally performing its ecological function, providing wildlife habitat, filtering water, sequestering carbon, and maintaining biodiversity. The planned deforestation, digging, grading, and substantial increase in impervious surfaces, roughly 1/3 of the site, would cause irreparable damage. Protecting these wetlands is a priority at local, state, and federal level. We urge the town to explore alternatives at 182 Parker Street. We implore the developer to consider the Powder Mill Overlay District, where this project could proceed without causing any environmental harm, would be in closer proximity to public transit, and would better serve the current and future residents of Maine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Orion. And I would ask if you haven't done so already, if you could provide the written copy to the town administrator so we can make sure that we have the exact text of what you said, that would be appreciated. And I will note that public comment period for that development is going to be open until Friday, at which point the town will be going through all those comments. I thank those of you who have submitted already. I think we have several hundred comments that we are reviewing right now, and we will consolidate those. I'll also note that the town is not taking action beyond providing commentary at this point. Right now, the developer who wishes to build on that parcel is submitting an application to the the state of Massachusetts, a subsidizing agency for financing. Our role as a town right now is to provide commentary on that. And from what we've seen so far and from what I've heard so far, I think what we're looking at is very much aligned with what you just said, Orion. And so we will close public commentary on Friday and continue with the working group that will be delivering comments to the select board later that month for official approval and submitting into that application. If it does come back to the town, eventually it would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we'll have another opportunity for public commentary at that point. So just want to make sure we're clear on some of those aspects of the process, that the town is not considering this development. We are commenting on the application. But thank you very much for providing that comment. Are there any other individuals in the room tonight who would like to make a public comment?
None with hands raised, Jeff.
Thank you. Are there any individuals online who would like to make a public comment tonight? Very good. All right, seeing no further public comment, we'll move on to item 4, which is indeed 182 Parker Street and the development. I think I just hit the wave tops just a few moments ago, but I'll turn it over to the town administrator to discuss progress since the last select board meeting and what the next couple of weeks looks like.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Greg Johnson, the town administrator. I think the board should be happy to hear that the town hall, principally through the Office of Municipal Services, has been really putting a lot of effort and made a lot of progress in collecting a lot of public input on the online portal that everyone can go to. If you go to the town website, you can go to 182 Parker Street, it's linked from the main page and then within the site as well. And you can submit your opinions, your comments, whatever they may be. And we had well over 300 last time I checked last week. So I'm curious where we're at now, but additionally, we've been collecting from individual boards and committees and departments, so we'll continue to compile those. The Massachusetts Housing Partnership, which is that subsidizing agency that you referenced, Mr. Chair, they did give an extension to the board when their board's comments will be submitted, and in preparation for that, we've been collecting all this input, which we will compile, and then town staff will give a recommendation as to what the board's comments may be. And the expectation is that for the next regular meeting of the select board on October 15th, that's when we'll have our recommendations prepared. In the course of the last few weeks worth of collecting public input, inevitably there's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of hearsay and there's a lot of speculation, which I appreciate you trying to address a little bit of Chair. And I believe a lot of people who are in the know are very well educated. But not everyone knows to check the website, as some groups do. So at this time, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I would like to introduce and allow for Municipal Services Director Steve Silverstein to kind of give a very brief, like we're trying to address like an FAQ, if you will, of where we are and sort of like clear the air a little bit of some of these some of these rumors, that are going around about the property. But I did tell the staff, keep it very brief, to the point. Because again, this is not, there's, not to be confused with the level of formality in the application process or the procedure. This is literally just an information session, if you will. But we are still very much in the nascent stages, the very beginning stages of a public comment period. So the town has taken no action. Even selecting comments is not really an action. It's very much at the state level.
We have that on board docs.
I don't think we have anything on board docs right now. Is what you're about to say on board? Well, okay,
Yeah, okay.
It just created a start.
all right, go for it quickly.
All right, well, thank you very much. I think, town administrator and, Mr. Chair gave a very good overview. Basically what we want to do at this point is, because we've been collecting public comments for a while, is to give you a sense of what direction the public is, what their feelings are about it. Greg, if you wouldn't mind going to the next, yeah, there you go. So this is, just to recapitulate, this is the timeline of events around in the 40B. So the leftmost box, the pre-40B, March 2024, OMS and DPW met with Avalon Bay, which they informed us that they were interested in putting their development at 182 Parker. We expressed concern over that site. May 24th is a follow-up meeting. Again, we reiterated our concern. Avalon stated that having the town's buy-in was critical, which we said was dubious, given the fact that there were a lot of different, dynamics in play there. Proximity to Maynard Crossing, wetlands and environment, and probably most importantly, water capacity issues. June of this year, DPW issued a memo by a very reputable engineering firm, which evidenced the fact that the town is unable to provide water, municipal water, to this site. And then in July 24, OMS sought to come up with an alternative solution, a win-win, if you will, which was alluded to by Green Maynard, seeing if we could perhaps migrate the development over to Powder Mill, because this is where we had planned for growth. We are here, which is project eligibility. Avalon Bay decided to surprise us with the application to the Mass Housing Partnership. It is a way for them to obtain financing from the state, up to 50% subsidized loans to finance the development. And Mass Housing is going to issue a project eligibility letter if they find that the project is feasible. If they do not, then this conversation is dead in the water as soon as they do not issue that project eligibility letter. We received notification end of August. Comment period, as you know, is ending 10/4 for the public, and we have to have our comments in by the 24th. The MHP decision will come within 3 months from the end of the comment date. So 3 months from October 21, but it could come a day later, or it could come 90 days later, or it could potentially come 120 days later. It's the state, so it's up to state bureaucracy. The next phase, comprehensive permit. If they receive their project eligibility letter, then the 40B really starts to, that's where 40B kind of kicks in. And Avalon Bay would then submit a comprehensive permit application to the ZBA. ZBA then has 180 days to render a determination as to the application. And their 3 possibilities are ZBA approves of conditions, or denies. Under the 40B, the appellate body, so should the developer not be happy with the results from the ZBA hearing, it goes to basically the state. The HAC is the Housing Appeals Committee, and they generally favor the developer. The conservation permit is something that would go on in parallel. I'll have Julia Flannery, our conservation agent, will discuss that in a second. Great, next slide. So interim public comment results very quickly. Favorability towards the development. So far, 96% of respondents have been against the development, 4% in favor. And then residency of the commenters, 70% have been from Maynard, but there's a very strong interest from Sudbury, as we know from last time the Sudbury residents spoke during their public comments. Next slide. Public's concerns generally.
Did you say 78%?
Of the respondents?
78% are from Maynard?
No, 71%.
71%.
Battery die. The public's concerns primarily, 3 out of 4 have cited infrastructure, water and sewer, primarily water, environmental concerns, close second. Specifically, the concern that's been mentioned 119 times so far, is water supply, wetlands, a second, and next slide. With that, I'll pass it over to Julia Flannery.
So that was a great overview, so I'm not really gonna go into too much other items, just about 40B now that we're talking in Maynard. So the comprehensive permit will go through our local zoning board. And they look at it in a very regulatory way that the state aligns. So they don't have to abide by our local bylaws. However, they do have to, we can put conditions on the project as long as it does not make the project economically infeasible. And so that's a term that you'll see be thrown around a lot. And this also, the comprehensive permit does not include the Wetlands Protection Act, so that will be a separate process through the Conservation Commission. So the big thing that you know, we want to make sure that people understand is municipalities that have not achieved the minimum affordable housing production threshold, so 10% of all available housing stock needs to be affordable. And if you haven't achieved that, then you are subject to Chapter 40B, which makes it so basically the state can take over and the town does not have a bunch of say. So just from a conservation perspective, the big difference between a 40B and a regular project coming in would be, they would still have to file a notice of intent. They're just not, again, held to local bylaws, just the state. So in this case, it would be the Wetlands Protection Act. So go through what our normal process is, which is a Mass DEP review, and a peer review of the application. Then we move to a public comment or a public hearing. And then public comment would be taken. The Conservation Commission would decide. They always approve with conditions. We have 2 pages of boilerplate conditions and then probably another 15 pages of additional conditions. And then if someone would like to appeal at that time, parties of interest, there's a long list in the WPA you can look up, can appeal to Mass DEP. If the commission denies, the applicant can also go through that process and appeal to Mass DEP.
So actually, let me just say 2 things very quickly. First is that there's a lot of innuendo and rumor around the environmental stakes. We don't know what we don't know yet because the stage that we're in is basically the pre-development stage. Once the developers issue their project eligibility letter, only at that point are they then going to submit a much longer, much fuller application to ZBA, which would then we could have a better understanding of where exactly they plan to build, what they plan to build, what exemptions they're looking for from the town's local bylaws, etc. So that data piece we don't fully have yet, so we can't really draw 100% conclusions about the environmental stakes.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people have asked me like, so what are you gonna do about the project? And we just can't say yet until we get an applicant. Just like if you were to come and ask me on, you know, building a deck in your backyard within the buffer zone, do the same thing. I can't really speak on it until I have a full application to allow me to help my commission make a decision.
The other one of the themes that I wanted to hit was the fact that people have been saying the town needs to say no to this development. The reason that the developer has gone the route of 40B is because it goes around the town's ability to say no definitively. At best, we can put conditions on. We've been trying to combat it as best we can, our destiny in our own control, but this is by design. So the town can't just turn it off switch. If it could, we wouldn't be here. We would have done it a while ago. And with that, Bill Nemser, our planning director, has the floor.
I think one of the advantages we have in this, that we should make clear in this whole process is that Maynard has been proactive in trying to foster economic development. And we have a couple of different really milestones that we've made and achieved. And they all stem from 2016 when the town engaged in its first housing production plan, which you all recall, resulted in the creation of the Affordable Housing Trust, inclusionary zoning bylaw, and ultimately incorporated much of that into the master plan. We're on our second iteration of the housing production plan, and we have our latest funding talking about 78% of people. I think we had 98% adopted MBTA community zoning at town meeting last spring, and I think that bodes well for our indication that we're trying to approach this in good faith. So we have been proactive with that. So is it working? We've done a lot of we've done a lot with small scale or in scale development to get our affordable units down. And by that, I mean, 20 units or below and projects like that. We haven't done anything that large in general, but we haven't needed to, because at this point, we're not going as quick as we would all like. But we have brought our since 2017, we were at somewhere about 8%. So we're up now at 9.18%. So in 5 years project, we've added quite a few units. A couple of people asked about units that are what I would call in process. And by that, I mean that are approved in one form or another, but have not been added to our SHI, our subsidized housing reports. And we're working to get those on as quickly as we can. It's there's a lot of little loose ends to tie it up. We don't know exactly how that's going to work out in terms of this project, but it's very likely that at this point, we will at least have these all in a approved by the state. So it'll give us more ammunition to go forward with. I don't know how it will ultimately play out. If all our units that we have approved were approved by the state, which is the final step, we'd be exactly 1 unit short. And we'll find a unit.
Thank you.
And-
So, I'm sorry, did you have any concluding statement?
No, just any questions that we had on the 40B process.
No, first, I just wanted to thank the Office of Municipal Services. I know that you've all been quite busy looking at this from every angle, and that slide deck is a succinct summary of a lot of work underneath that. So I appreciate all the effort you've put in, not just since the 40B, but leading into affordable housing planning. As you said, that timeline goes back to 2016. So thank you, especially you three who are presenting here tonight. Any questions from the select board?
Comment. Thank you for the presentation. And Steve commented on, things that people have commented to him about why did the town say no? And I think what's important for people to understand is that, to your point, we can't just say no, but more importantly, we are frustratingly pushing back and strongly saying, here's why this is not a good fit at that location for the town of Maynard. And so people need to understand, because I hear from a lot of people saying, we're not doing our job to protect the town or whatever. And furthest couldn't be further from the truth. We're doing everything we possibly can do to point out the issues that were expressed by Orion earlier that I've heard so many times that probably are included in the 117 or whatever it is commentary about the water infrastructure aspect. So we're doing what we can. I think I'm hopeful that we will be able to convince these folks that for so many reasons, this is not the place for their proposed development, and hope that. And the other point I want to make to Bill's point is all that we have done, and I'm proud of having been part of it with the housing production plan, with the the Affordable Housing Trust, with all that we've done to push ourselves to assure that we add in affordable units. And there was a lot of pushback when we first started, and it was not easy because people didn't understand what affordable housing is. And I still think that that's part of the issue anyway, but people don't understand that affordable housing is not the projects in Cambridge or the projects at some other location. It's affordable, nice affordable units that people can afford to live in, and even that's questionable when you look at the dollar amounts that they put on the value here in Maynard. But the point is, we've done our part, and it's unfair in my eyes for an organization to come in despite with a town like our size and to try to force something like this upon us. To me, it's just a bit unfair and untoward. And I hope that they hear us and they see the reasons are not NIMBYism, but rather we have issues. And I guess people could say, yeah, that's only in Maynard issues, but we have issues that cannot be ignored. That's my soapbox.
Thank you, David.
I have a comment. Thank you for that thorough presentation. So I think, as David has pointed out, a lot of speculation is basically like what the role of the town is in this, what the role of the select board is, what the role of various committees are, and the reality is in regard to the decision making, the role's minimal or limited at this point. I'm curious, I think there's probably some total of 30-ish people currently present and listening, unless there's thousands of people watching us on Facebook, which I'm guessing no. Is there some mechanism for further distributing this information? Either that presentation that you just, or I know you sent us a website that outlines 40B, because it's very complicated and very nuanced. But I think some of the high points, just helping people understand everything that you just said, that this has not been solicited by the town. This is not something that the town is heavily advocating for, either at the town employee level or at any of the board levels. Do we have some way to further distribute this information, or do the 30 people online and in this room want to go tell 10 of their friends?
Facebook is pretty effective, and the way the town officially interacts with Facebook is really to get people. We sort of post something on Facebook that tells people to go to the website, because that's where we have control over, and we as town staff don't get into deliberations on Facebook. So we try to say the facts are available. Like, they go to the website. That 40B that you mentioned, I emailed it to you, but it was already on. So, but it takes a little bit of work. Like, you have to. It has been a lot of people to not go to Facebook and to go to our website. I'm being sarcastic, but like, it takes a little bit of effort, and not to believe everything you read. You have to read it. They're there. You just go to the website. So we could take this PowerPoint. I was really impressed. I thought they were just gonna talk to us, but they did a PowerPoint. And I think we could maybe expand it a little bit, like some of those great questions you just did. And just to sort of like give, as you were kind of alluding to, the town's stance, the town's perspective and role. And then we can put that on there. But again, like, it's difficult without a newspaper, without a town crier. Like, we are unfortunately under the influence of whatever the great Facebook says.
Mhm.
So but the way we can get on top of it is, and I know you're saying 30 people is not a lot, but I actually think it is, because we're not that big of a town, and we have a lot of very involved. So those 30 people could actually be really influential.
I agree.
And they could go
Yeah.
and they could tell people, that's not true. Go to the website. That's where you're gonna see the facts.
That's my hope, but I mean, 30 of 11,000, I'm just saying, like, how do we quickly and efficiently distribute this information further? Then I would implore the 30-ish people listening to go to the town Facebook page, and if you're on Facebook, share that information broadly on Facebook and to people you know.
The Office of Municipal Services, and Julia, who is a resident of the town, has been pushing very strongly for this, is willing to have a public information session if it, so behooves the
Do you have
town.
time for that?
No, we don't have time.
There's something that the chair and I have discussed too. My reluctance of having a separate meeting for that is I don't want to be misleading in that it's a town action right now. It's not, that would not be a town meeting. It would be pretty much what you'd already heard, like, this is where we are. So, and I don't think we have to have a meeting for that. What's the old saying, like, this could have been an email. I think like we try to get the word out as best we can to get people to go onto the website. If and when the time comes, we get a comprehensive permit, that's a different action. And then, so there'll be multiple meetings, EPA, Conservation Commission. But now you've had 2 meetings, the select board. This has been on the agenda twice, and about to be for a third one in 2 weeks. So that's saying a lot too. Like, that's a lot of, there's been a lot of public meetings about this, so nothing's being hidden.
I think the most important thing that, when you put up, Steve, the first screen, it had like 4 different bullet points or whatever outlining. The first point that we met with these, or I didn't, but the staff met with the developer in March and told them, and Justin told them that this is not good. Here's why. And we told them it was not a good situation for water purposes specifically. And despite that, they flipped it, and you said during your presentation, they surprised us, or they, whatever the term you use. This is not the town failing to do something, it's the developer.
Do we have the capacity to produce flyers or information for either the Maynard Fest and or town meeting next week? I know we can't raise it.
Maynard Fest is like 3
but
days.
to have the
What about
information.
a QR code that takes you to that website?
Yeah,
Just around maybe.
Let's-
That's,
We could do that, yep.
far.
Just to,
as paper.
there's two events coming up with the possibility
Yeah.
of slightly wider circulation.
I mean, OMS does already have a flyer, right? It's on the desk right now. It's, are you interested or you'd like to submit? This is where you go. So we can try to get that. Yeah, I think QR code is close.
My phone's been off the hook this week. Bill and I are always welcome people to come in and stop by or email us, call us. We'll be happy to explain the nuances of 40B as best as we can. But mind you, it's taken many years and of experience and of school, and it's still confusing for us. And we're, so we will do our best to lead the town through this process. And we're happy to answer any questions when you guys think of them.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the select board?
Just thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
All right, very good. And then let's see. So as Greg noted, we'll have this on the agenda again next week. I'm sorry, next meeting, and we'll keep moving forward. All right, we're moving on to item 5, which is the use of town property, and we have 2 items here. The first is a block party on Lincoln Street. Mr. Town Administrator.
I can see we're joined by Aaron Garcia, but the applicant is Max Garcia, but that's okay. So the Garcias are applying to host a block party. Could you introduce yourself and what you want to do?
Hi there. Thanks, everyone. My name's Erin Garcia. I live on Lincoln Street here in Maynard. We are really just wanting to have a block party this weekend on Sunday, October 6th. We have just our one stretch of the block between, I'm terrible with the Concord and Randall, I believe, is probably 20 kids along with the adjacent streets. And so we're just kind of looking to all get together in a safe way and let the kids be in the street and kind of let our street and some of the adjacent neighbors of the street surroundings gather.
Very good. And I see there's no issues from the police chief, fire chief, or DPW director. Any questions or comments from the select board? Anybody like to make a motion?
Sure. Move to approve the block party on Lincoln Street on Sunday, October 6, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. as presented, contingent upon adherence to all federal, state, and local public health and safety guidance, as well as the receipt of relevant liability coverage in authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Have fun.
Thank you very much and happy to spread the QR code there.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 5B, which is a gift of trees at Coolidge Park from the Tree Corps. Do we have somebody representing the Tree Corps tonight? Hi, Neil.
Hi, I'm Neil Peterson. I live at 2 Country Lane in Maynard. Kate Wheeler, leader of our Tree Corps. And we're here to request the planting of 2 gift trees at Coolidge Community Park. This is a very friendly board. They know this is a simple thing, but we wanna offer a thought on planting of trees. Because I had an interesting interaction at the Maynard Farmers Market this past weekend. We table every year, we give away trees, and a young woman said, "I'll take a tree home, but I won't see it. I know I won't see it grow," or something like that. And it gave me pause. Because I think, there's ideas that if we plant a tree, it takes a long time for them to get big and everything. And I wanted you to think about, Thoreau said, wood warms us twice, when you split it and when you burn it. And I want to say these gifts of trees, these acts of planting of trees are a way of warming hearts in Maynard in 3 ways. The first is the hope that if it's approved, we go ahead, we're giving hope to the town and hope to people that we're enhancing our environment for future generations. The second one is the actual act of planting these trees and changing the landscape in such a way that we build community bonds within the tree core and any volunteer, so if anyone wants to help us, that would be wonderful. And then lastly, though, science has now shown us that trees grow faster in parks and towns than they do in the forest. So this idea that trees are the future is not, for future generations, is not fully supported by the science. The science is these will grow within 3 or 5 years, they'll start blooming and being wonderful for us now, for everyone in this room, I think, and everyone on the screen. So with that, we request that you accept our gift of a spice bush and American hornbeam.
Very good. Any questions from the tree corps representatives here?
I
And
will,
From memory, I just believe both of those are approved local native species from our tree plan as well.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, David.
Yes, I skipped that, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. And the tree plan.
I will move to accept and approve the planting of trees and other landscaping donated by the Maynard Tree Corps as presented, contingent upon adherence to conditions directed by the Director of Public Works.
Second,
All in favor? Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes,
David,
Yes,
Mike,
yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you both very much for your work
thank you.
thank you.
Contribution.
and contribution. Moving on to item 6, which is a one-day special license. This is a license for the sale of alcoholic beverages in association with the bocce tournament, which we approved at a previous meeting. Is there anything else to add to that, Greg?
No, that's it. We were expecting this.
Any questions on this application?
I assume they'll just have a tent like they did for the other events that they were.
Greg, what's your recollection as to what this is set up?
Yeah, I believe this was. I believe this was mapped out and with the former application on the location.
Yeah. I think they were still, as of about earlier in the week, still, they didn't have a drawing necessarily, but I know that they were communicating with the police department, the whole plan. I can't recall what the plan from the last week looks like. That's probably a safe assumption, David, that it's going to be similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all I would ask is that we make sure, as we have discussed, that it's, that any, and I'm sure they would adhere. But that any beer garden or beer tent is not within the square of Memorial Park. I mean, the monuments.
Yeah, understood.
If it's helpful, I'm on this meeting. I'm the applicant for the permit for the day. I can maybe give a little info.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, so yes, we do owe you a drawing, but we verbally went over it during the original meeting that we came to. And since then, I have been communicating with Chief Noble and verbally explained everything, and he seemed very comfortable with it. There will be a police detail, and yes, we're going to follow the model from previous successful events in the park where there is a confined space where beer and, malt, wine, whatever is available. That's the limit of the permit. It's only within the hours of the event, within the confines of the park, and it is nowhere near any of the monuments in the park itself. It's just, from the concert stage moving toward the grass, toward Nason Street, is the area where people would have, refreshments.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I will move to approve the one-day special license for the sale of alcoholic beverages by Amory's Tomb at Naylor Court in conjunction with the bocce tournament on October 19th, 2024, from 2 to 6 p.m. Authorizing use of digital signatures if approved. Now, this says Naylor Court. Is that still comprising the Memorial, I mean, yeah, Memorial Park.
That's a good question. So John, can you clarify? So when we think of Naylor Court, we think of the parking area in the central basin, and then Memorial Park is like the grassy area elevated. Where between those two, we can maybe amend the motion.
I can amend a motion to Memorial Park.
But is it, unless the tent is actually gonna be in the parking lot?
No, the application says Veterans Memorial Park. I think just the language on board docs is
Oh,
incorrect.
so maybe that
So
was,
I will amend my motion to read, that it will be approved for sale of alcoholic beverages by Amory Strom at Memorial Park.
This is the first I've ever heard of Naylor Court, so we won't be there.
oh, come on.
We'll be in the park.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
I will abstain.
David,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to item 7, which is a proposed marker near the fire station for the Amory Grove. And do we have a representation from the Historical Commission?
Hello, my name is Priscilla Sandberg and I am the Chair of the Maynard Historical Commission. As you all know, one of our goals is to preserve and recognize some of the attributes of Maynard that mean a lot to our history. So today we are here, we have developed a sign that commemorates the history of Amory Grove. Or if you don't know what that is, it's essentially the parking lot behind the fire station. That used to be a grassy area where people all across Maynard would gather for 4th of July, they would go swimming. It was a very easy access to the mill from the upper neighborhood on Thompson Street. And we have worked with Angela Wallace at the fire station and identified an area for which we would like to place the plaque in front of the small little pocket park that we developed in conjunction with the construction of the fire department. So today we are here to ask for permission to dig 2 holes to post our sign in front of the fire station.
Any questions?
how big's the sign? Is it like what we see down for the digital signs down at whatever that park is?
Yeah, so it's the bigger ones that they're like this, and it has the sort of a comprehensive history and pictures.
Yeah,
It's more similar to the ones down by the mill. Right?
that's what I'm talking about down at, yeah.
The bigger signs, not just. Came out really nice.
Good.
My only question is, and we emailed the back and forth about this, so I know it says pre-European settlement to the early 1900s, but the first sentence goes directly into European settlers, and if the sign could be amended to include acknowledgement of indigenous presence before European settlement, and I know that the sign has already been printed, so I'm curious as to what the cost would be of such a reprint as well, to see if we can find a funding mechanism for that, if the Historical Commission can facilitate that.
We can certainly evaluate what the cost would be of having it amended and rewritten. Our hope was that we would place it in October for Fire Prevention Safety Month and use it as a way to attract people over to the fire station. So if you're willing to, we'd have, and then after October, then we would have to delay till the spring because the ground starts to get hard. So if it's a enormous problem for the select board, I can go back to our sign manufacturer and have a conversation. But we'll take additional funds that we haven't budgeted for in the Maynard Historical Commission budget. So I would just defer to you all as to how you want to approach that.
Do you have an approximate cost?
No,
I would like to know. I think that is certainly important to me to get that on there. Even if we can approve the drilling of the holes initially, and maybe even the base layer, and then get that sign reprinted, I think that would be, hopefully we can find a solution where we can still get this thing in the ground relatively quickly, but we get language that's reflective of what I believe the community would want to see there.
have permission to dig the holes and we can put the posts in, that would be fine. We can get back to you regarding the cost of reprint. I don't know if it would be a portion of the sign or the entire sign. So my only question would be that, you know, once we get back to you with the cost of a potential reprint, what would be the process for getting funds allocated for the reprint? like I mentioned, we don't have it within our budget for this year to reprint the entire sign. The cost of the sign initially was around $800.
The full sign with the posts?
The full sign printed was 800, the posts are additional that we purchased as part of the.
Okay,
The board does have, I mean, the town appropriated, an account, I think we refer to it as like community support or whatever, I can't remember the proper title, but it's sort of the discretion of the board. Just a couple $1,000, I don't remember.
I do agree with Jeff, it's worth looking into. I mean, it always bothers me when I see American history stuff and Europeans. Yeah.
Any questions?
No, but I'll take an action item with the town administrator to figure out how we can fund this without further digging into the historical commission budget, and we'll go from there and be in touch. So perhaps we could approve the installation subject to the language change, and then we'll work on the rest. Any other comments from the board?
We do have in spots on the historical commission, if anybody wants to join and give their opinion in person.
That's good to know, and I believe we normally have items at town meeting letting people know what spots are open, so hopefully we've captured the historical commission there as well. Would somebody like to read the motion in that case?
Move to approve the installation of the Amory Grove historical marker at the Maynard Fire Station 30 Sudbury Street, subject to evaluation of the amendments to the content of the text. That work?
Very good.
Fine by me.
Seconded.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Mike,
Yeah.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 8 now. We have a presentation from the Senior Center Committee and an update on some of the work that they've been doing. Good evening.
Good evening.
Pretend like we don't know who you guys are. Pretend like we don't know who you are.
I'm Deb Roussel, I'm on the Senior Center Committee.
I'm Jack McKean, also a member of the Senior Center Committee, and we have other members here. I have been elected to be the spokesperson.
geez, what a surprise.
He's had a lot of practice.
While Greg's putting the slides up, we'd like to thank the select board for scheduling this discussion tonight, and it was deliberately because we wanted to share the progress in the year since the voters overwhelmingly supported funding an expanded senior center almost exactly a year ago. So it's very appropriate for this to be done here. And the second item, as we begin to deal with the slides, I bring up every time because the senior center work encompasses both the interim center, larger, and the permanent. Those are two separate things. And we have not been in any discussion, even within our committee, in which confusion between those two does not occur. So I just wanted to bring that up. First slide. The town of Maynard has been seeking a permanent senior center for more than 4 decades. There's actually in the report, which is now approaching 40 to 50 pages, which is in the process of being prepared. There's actually a timeline, which is a very useful kind of thing. Number 2 up there has a lot of code words. I'm going to go through them. Too small is really the primary reason that this entire effort has gotten started. We do need, for a growing senior population, a larger senior center. Remote refers to its current location. It's in the northeast corner of town, at the back end of another building with very limited signage. There are people in town we've discovered who don't know we have a senior center. Inaccessible is code for the ramp going up to that building. And if you are a citizen of any age who has coronary or pulmonary issues, heart or lung, trying to get up that ramp is a difficulty. And as an anecdote, the council on aging van literally drives up that ramp to the door, just so people can get past it.
And then when you get to the winter and you're trying to do that on icy conditions, you get that as well. And frankly, something we've discovered, as the town has discovered, the building itself is deteriorating. I've already mentioned that the large support at the year ago town meeting. I saw about 12 hands in opposition out of 750 odd, so enormous work. That support led you folks, the select board, to create the senior center committee last year. And one of the first things we discovered when we began to function as a committee, that for a permanent municipal facility, not the interim one, for a permanent one, we can produce and will produce in the report documented evidence that in almost every town, there's a minimum of 7 to 12 year period to produce, fund, design, get space for, find a site for a permanent facility. So focusing on the interim center, we have had conversations with the finance committee, and it's their suggestion. The best way to address that is through a lease. A lot of our activity has been focused on leasing. And item 7, the funding issues are really the focus of why we're here tonight, aside from sharing progress. And it is in fact the municipal procurement process and the ethical things that go along with it in terms of you don't go out and ask for requests for proposal. In other words, firm commitments without having that funding source identified. And you will see when we get to our recommendations, we're going to ask the select board as early as possible, along with the town administrator and so forth, find a way to fund our activities as soon as possible. And the other fact that gets introduced here is that it's obvious, probably you folks on the select board and other town committees, but it's not really thought of very visibly across the community. As soon as funding is approved, whenever that is, we're looking at 18 to possibly 24 months before you would have a facility, an interim facility. Negotiate a contract, find a designer, get the engineering work done, get the permitting done, get the construction done. That's not going to happen in less than 12 to possibly 24 months. So I'm trying to demonstrate there the urgency that we really feel around making the fundamental decision to find the funding here. Next slide, please. Maynard will have about 3,200 and some odd seniors. By the end of 2024, Lindsay, those are 60 plus, which is the definition of the aging assessment study, which is coming along, does use. That data comes from the town's voter registration system. So it's not census, it's not, somebody's demographic forecast. That's for this year out of our own system. The Council on Aging has in fact been tracking the activity. 237 unduplicated annual users of senior center programs. Slight amendment to that number, but addition is a better word. There's an additional approximately 80 users who just use the van. So you're looking actually 310. 237 is really more of a program and event kinds of things. And Lindsay, you asked about, age of those kind of things. About 22% of those are 60 to 70. 37% are 70 to 80. 38% are 80 and above. So it is heavily tilted toward the older end of the
70 and
spectrum.
above is the bulk of the 237.
The next bullet, we really felt it was important to have some kind of a plan, some kind of a goal, because in fact, you're going to ask the questions about staffing and operating costs and so forth. So the goal, and this has been part of our conversations with the COA director. First step, double the users, and then eventually triple the original number, not triple the double. But tripling the original number does get you up to about 700 users. That's in the larger interim facility. And the key thing here is adding staff as usage occurs. The COA director has a plan that basically says we will stay with the staff we have, 2 people, add some volunteers. And then when usage gets to 300, 400, 500, then we begin to need additional staff, whether it's part-time or full-time. And it's why I brought up earlier the conversation about we're 12 to 24 months away from even having a facility after whatever date we make the decision to fund it. So in terms of additional operating costs, you're looking at 2 to 3 years out anyway. But the key part of it is staff gets added when the usage occurs. So the COA director has a plan. Some of the other pieces of data, this comes from Jock Morris, who was a member of our committee, Public Buildings Commissioner in Newton, who's literally going through this building of a center. The research he did, the 40-odd senior centers that he visited as part of that, who open new permanent senior centers, they do see 4 to 5 times multiple in terms of the number of users. And just a detail here, the Massachusetts State Office of what's now Executive Elder Affairs recommends 4 to 5 square feet per senior. We have about a half a square foot. Next slide.
Jack, is that per senior population or per senior usage?
Per senior population. So if we had 3,000 seniors times 4 to 5 square feet, so forth. The next 2 or 3 slides, again, you folks authorized a request for information. Greg issued it, and I'm going to share with you the responses from that. Using this slide, 13 Digital Way, and those of you looking at the slide, the bright path thing that they referenced on the far left of the building, the portion of this building which they have made available as an offer is the back corner on the far right-hand side of the picture. It's at the back of the building. That actually works out fairly well. There's plenty of parking in the front, it is level, but there's a roadway that runs behind that building. So literally the COA van could come up that roadway, drop the people, literally steps from the door. And at some point, if this was the way the town chose to go forward, there probably could be a door directly off the back. There is one on the end of that building. So it's a rational place. The comment is new construction, raw space. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Build out costs. I'll come back to that in the summary. Next slide, Randy. The second response to the RFI was from Bill & Main under new owners. And a piece of what you got here is the new owners are still trying to figure out what it is they want to do with the building. So they basically looked at it and said, we will offer you the entire, what they call Building 9. Picture is a little bit dark, but what is the Maynard Medical Center building? We offered the entire building, 7,400 square feet, and you can see the rates. There'll be a summary slide on that as well. This one is both, has some good things and some difficult things. The handicap floor is not the second floor rather is not handicapped accessible. ADA compliance would be a significant investment. Even though the building has a ramp, it is not ADA compliant. So there's a whole bunch of issues that would have to be addressed if that was the way to go. Next slide. This one is the interesting one. After the RFI responses were received, we made a request to the 141 Parker Street people. And side note, that building was looked at the last time we had a senior community life center committee 10, 12 years ago, which is why, is there any space there? And frankly, we were surprised with the response. We came back that no, that building is now fully leased, but we would like to talk to you about the opportunity to tear down the derelict white house there and build you a building. We liked that, so we went and talked to them. When we got there, they handed us the picture, the diagram you see here. They not only offered that as a conversation, which is the foreground with the orange around the blue is the footprint of the derelict white house. They also said there's another option, which is the lower half of the first floor of the building in the back, the existing building. I think everybody can picture that. It still currently has the drive-through lanes on the ground level for the former Digital Credit Union Bank building. Their proposal to us here, they wanted to get rid of that. They would then convert that to space, so forth and so on, take a small portion of the existing building, and that would be what is now called option one. So they basically offered us two potential options there. But again, configured to be a senior center in terms of office layout, what we would need, rooms and so forth and so on. They did bring up, it would require a longer lease than we had asked for. And you'll see in a couple of minutes because of some new information that you haven't seen. That's going to be one of the points of conversation. Next slide, Greg. This slide has changed from the one in your package. Because at 6 o'clock tonight, the 141 Parker Street people followed through with what they said they were going to do. But what they have done, once we went and talked to them, and you saw the diagram of the two little orange blocks, they said they would do a layout. So we actually do have a layout sketch for each of those. Then they said they would provide us with guidelines in terms of, well, okay, what does that mean in terms of what a lease cost would be? And again, they fully understand that it's not a commitment. And the first thing I want to emphasize on this slide, I'm going to spend some time on it because it's one of the two key slides in the presentation. Again, you folks know, but some of the viewers might not know. This is request for information. It is not binding in any way on any of the offers that have been made. And it is not a negotiated price. So these are placeholders, estimates, planning guidelines that can and will change as we go forward. Maynard Crossing, we'll kind of deal with it. You can see the numbers there, 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, but what we wanted to get across in the table on the top, the impact in the operating budget, depending on the square footage that the town chose, and there's flexibility there. The town can choose if we go forward, is it 5, is it 6, is it whatever, there's some flexibility there. But you're looking at 185 to 217,000. And it is raw space. So if you drop down below that to the second table, the one-time fit-out cost. And I want to spend a couple of minutes here. The key number, cost per square foot at $150 to do the build out. And we will confuse build out and fit out and so forth and so on. There is actually some confidence in $150 a square foot. We talked to the architect or an architect that has actually worked on a project in there. He shared with us what his costs were for the project. To detail, his costs were $147 per square foot. Separately, we went online and looked for other standards along here. Most of them came in at about $150 a square foot. So there is some confidence on the part of the committee that for a raw space build out, you're somewhere in the 150, maybe $160 a square foot. And you can do the math and you see the projected need, which would be a very large amount of money against a very short-term potentially lease. And I will tell you now, the committee didn't feel very comfortable about that. Same exercise with Mill and Main, 160,000 for the operating budget. And I skipped over something I shouldn't have. The operating cost additional at $25,000 is an estimate. COA director is comfortable with it. It is not staffing, it is just additional electricity and other kinds of things like that. And again, it's a planning number, but the COA director is comfortable with that number. So again, you see the impact on the operating budget. Dropping down now into the lower table. You still see the $150 per square foot there. I will tell you, we have much less confidence in that number. We again talked to an architect, and there are members of the committee who have some experience with this. 150 is probably low. The architect said, depending on what the renovation is, and this is renovation versus brand new raw space. So it could be 300, it could be 400, depending on what you're trying to do, what you run into. So in the end, what we chose to do as a committee, we just chose to use the same $150 per square foot. What I'm telling you here is it's likely to be higher. But even at 150, again, against the larger square footage, you're looking at close to $1 million. Now, the piece of this slide, which is new. We did not have, at the time we posted these slides, the lease cost estimates for 141 Partner. And this is for option one, which is renovation of the existing building, which is basically, we thought was going to be less expensive than the whole new building, and we guided them toward that. So this is renovation of the existing building. And in a moment, I will read you, just it's quick, but I'll read it. But you're looking at $26 plus utilities, plus escalation, which is not shown there. Again, the 5,250 square feet, they can be flexible about. The 25,000 moves over, so you're looking at 161,500 a year for lease. But the important thing is there is no build out or fit out cost. What they're basically offering is we will build it, and then we absorb, we being they, absorb the build out costs in the lease. But they want a 15-year lease. So it's a longer lease. Again, if the financing was there, this could be subject to negotiation. We could go for a short-term lease, perhaps at a higher rate, so forth and so on. But we feel good about it because it gets past the very large amount of money that will be required for the build out, either for new space or for renovated space. I think it's important, so let me just quickly read. This was an email we got at 6 o'clock tonight. The 5,250 rentable square feet, 26 plus utilities, operating costs, aside from, I know I'm in detail, aside from tenant utilities, which will be sub-metered, all operating costs, taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance are included in the rent or the lease. Escalation greater of 3% or CPI annually, 15 years. Size of the space flexible, can be sized to your budget. Well, that was the summary. Again, I want to beat this point a little bit. None of these are negotiated. None of these are binding on either side. So these are planning sorts of numbers. But we do have 3 options for interim space moving forward. And the last, sorry, okay, just back up 1 second. Down at the bottom, I hope folks can read it. We are looking at, where are there other sources of money? Undesignated earmarks, there is 17,500. That's currently in the COA account. There is another earmark that has been granted, but if it doesn't get cut, I mean, that there are kind of conditions around it. It doesn't show up until late this year. And the Friends of Maynard Seniors have absolutely committed to fundraising in terms of things. Plus, I will say here, although we'll come up a little bit later, the feasibility study, which we'll get into in just a second, represents probably the biggest single opportunity to pursue grants or earmarks or something like that. That's why we've singled that out. You'll see that on the recommendation slide. Now, I mentioned earlier, interim, permanent. So now I'm moving back to the permanent. One of the things that needs to happen in terms of defining a permanent thing, which would be, as I said, 7 plus 12 years, whatever it is out. This is what a permanent center feasibility study, basically what a feasibility study does. And this estimate was presented to Greg. Greg validated it with the house doctor firm that the town employs. So there is, again, a high degree of confidence around $150,000. Plus it can be tailored to what we want. The $150,000 that Greg validated basically said, we'll look at 3 options. Renovating the existing building, renovating a different town building, or designing a new building on a town-owned site. Again, nothing's negotiated, but that gives us a high degree of confidence that $150,000 for a feasibility study is a good number to bring forward in terms of the kind of conversations we want to have here. Next slide, Ray. This is the key slide. And our request to the Senior Center Committee, I'm going to read this one, but I think it's important. That the select board in collaboration with town administration commit to funding the following expenses for a senior center at the earliest possible time. And I've already laid out time issues. We're a year past support at the last year's town meeting. We're looking at another 12 to 18 months if we made the decision tonight. And clearly there is no motion in front of you to make that decision tonight. It's going to take a lot of work, possibly town meeting votes. So we're really looking at a fairly long time to meet a need which the voters have supported strongly a year ago. A multi-year lease. We put $250,000 in there. It's a placeholder. It could be lower. I doubt if it would be higher. But it gives you the range, a target, if you will, rather than range, of a number that we should think about. If we did in fact come to some arrangement with 141 Parker, that number could probably go down. But I think it's important that you keep something like that as the number around us, and this would be an ongoing lease number annually for whatever number of years that we work out. I mentioned that the 141 Parker Street looked for a 15-year lease. That was in the email, which you haven't seen, and we just got. But is there an opportunity to negotiate? Say, okay, we don't want a 15-year lease. What would it be at 10 years? And the number of 160 or whatever it was might very well go up. So my point is, it's a valid number to use as a placeholder, but it's a target that is going to change. Plus one-time construction conversion costs. And that's a number to be determined. Again, we need the funding commitment so that Greg, as the town administrator or chief procurement officer, can actually go negotiate, have a conversation, and find the numbers that we will actually need to put into the town planning, so forth. It's why we were pleased with the now, 2-hour-old response from 141 Parker. It looks like, I have seen the sketches they have given back to us, which I like, but Amy has seen them and seems pleased by them. We could perhaps get past, not have, build out our fit-out costs. We're paying for it. We're paying for it on an annual basis as part of a lease. And the feasibility study, I've already made the comments that the 150,000 is both a number which seems rational and vetted. It represents the best opportunity for outside funding in terms of earmarks or other kinds of support from wherever. And we close by basically saying we are committed as a senior Senate committee to work with all parties to make this happen. And with that, questions or comments?
Thank you, Jack. Any questions from the board?
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I'm curious if you did find a space, and we worked out the funding issues, and you did find a space that was suitable as a long-term lease. What is the benefit of also pursuing a permanent space, given, if you have a long-term lease in a space that is totally appropriate, given the needs as I've heard them for a long-term space, that it needs to be flat, it needs to either have parking or be close to the center of town. Seems like there are a lot of physical requirements. Currently, I don't think we own any land we could build a building on. So why pursue that? I understand the timeline, that it's very long, but if we had a 15-year lease, why would we also concurrently pursue a permanent building when that's so much harder to obtain, just based on the logistics of building a building in Maynard?
There's 2 or 3 answers to that. It's come up in the committee a number of times. It said the interim solution might in fact be the permanent solution. Second point is of all the senior centers that Josh looked at, and we looked at some of these, the slides in the rest of your package, there's one town and one town only that leases. There's a strong preference to owning, but that doesn't have to be the preference.
But yeah, but why? That's what I'm wondering. Have any of the towns given you any reasoning on that?
I can't answer that. It becomes more of what does the town want to finance and own and control?
However, generally, a town wants to own its own municipal properties.
But if we don't have any space for them.
No, I get it.
Yeah, and the third answer is, it's maybe personal, maybe more than the senior center committee, but it's been voiced in the senior center committee. It is likely that when you get to the permanent center, you're much more apt to have a community center kind of thing. So that it's available for others. You can still do that in a lease center and so forth. That would require some scheduling and so forth. The design of it would incorporate more things like that. And I'll give you the specific, one of the conversations we had at the senior center committee. It was actually a draft layout of what a permanent thing would look like. It included a gym. Now you're into youth activities and other kind of things like that. So the answer is it becomes part of the decision process at some point. Say, do we have things in a permanent center that we would really like to have that would serve a wider spectrum of the community versus one that is optimized around senior, kind of thing like that. But it's a valid point, and it also goes back to, do you accept the 15-year lease, or do you decide, well, we really want to minimize the lease, so we can negotiate a higher price for 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and so forth. I think we've wonderful set of topics. So be able to do this. It comes back to is there a way for the town to commit the funding so that we can actually engage in the kinds of conversations which we're doing?
I had, first of all, a comment, in looking at your numbers here, I noticed that, with a little under 250 users at the moment, that the cost works out at about $1,000 per user, as compared with over $22,000 per student in schools, who are obviously also citizens. So I think that's something of note. I should know this number, but what is the approximate cost at the moment to the town of the current senior center?
$161,000 a year.
That's what we're already spending. Okay, so the additional cost would be, another 90,000. Right.
Can I just
Can we?
add to that comment? Just in regard to I know that we do a lot of comparing of how much money we spend on schools versus how much money we spend on seniors. I think, on the face of it, that feels like a reasonable comparison. I do think that it's actually a little more nuanced than that. While we do spend a fair amount of money on pupils, children must be educated by law. And so there is a little bit of a nuance there in comparing those numbers. I feel like I have to make that point. So.
You're also comparing current versus projected future. If I took your math and said we get to 700 and 160,000.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, it was just a number that came out and
it's a valid time. Somebody's going to come up with that and make that comparison. It's valuable to part of our conversation as we go through this process.
We have the unduplicated people, but also in addition to that, it's 110 people are getting rides through the van, the senior van, to appointments, grocery shopping as well.
Jack, just because it's not up there and it's not on our screen because the numbers change. I'm really intrigued by the 141 Parker Street. It's both of those proposals, but since it appears that it's more focused on the renovation at their expense, essentially, at over 15-year lease, I guess that makes more sense. But what's the annual cost of that proposal that you had up there? The annual budgetary number impact?
it's 161.5.
161.5. Now, what's $3.4 million divided by 165? The reason I use that number, I think, is pretty evident.
I haven't had
I
a
think
calculator on my wall.
you- But you hear my point. The number for somebody sitting at a football field versus being able to utilize what's the priority for the community. If you go for the numbers of the number of years that you'll be looking at. Granted, one is permanent, to be there for a longer period of time, but the value and the actual priority of the community is pretty clear to me.
Yeah, the other piece of the 141 Parker that probably don't need to point this out. Level building, willing to rearrange the parking lot to get the van where we need to go. So that's detail, but when you get to a negotiation.
Jack, have we considered needs for increased staffing if we're going to be in a significantly bigger space compared to the current space?
That was addressed in Jack's
Oh, sorry,
comments.
then I must not have heard it. I apologize.
It's sometimes hard to hear when
Yeah,
you're.
and the plan that basically attempts to manage that, that's the $25,000 and then. When we get to the 300, 400, 700, there will be a requirement for additional staffing, but it's years out and coupled to use.
But not included in that 25,000.
Now, the 25,000 is, electricity and other,
Utilities.
utilities, well, utilities are in the.
Okay.
The lease, but there's no.
That's the general operating costs of the space is essentially what you're talking about versus.
Yeah.
Operating costs of personnel, which wouldn't be impacted based on your presentation for several years, because you'd need to have the increase in use that would generate the increase. And presumably, as I think this through, the increase, most of the senior programs, many of them, not all, but many of them they charge. So there could be a subsidy from the users to the additional costs that are going on for the operational costs that are necessary for hiring individuals to come in to do programming and to run those programs.
Yes,
Right.
Amy, I talked to Amy a couple of, well, Amy's on, she wants to talk, but she's basically put a fairly disciplined thought process in place in terms of go with what they've got, and volunteers, then if it's part-time, it's part-time. But yes, eventually there will be a requirement for increased staff.
We do have volunteers that do run some of the classes and some of the programs as well. At this point, so they're not people that have been hired to do certain. Like I'm doing a walking club starting tomorrow. I'm taking everybody out to get them out of the building. And that's just something I want to do is get everybody up and out of there. We have other people that are doing some art classes and.
Just volunteers within the
Yeah.
community.
So that helps. And I think Amy does have a plan in place for the future, if there needs to be more staff people. Because if you get more people in the building, you're going to need more staff to help with some of the other things, not just the classes and that. There's a lot of things to do with health and services in the state that people come in there for some information. And having the people available to be there to talk privately with a client is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, and again, I'm kind of repeating the recommendation. We are tied to the municipal funding process and the appropriation and all the other kinds of things. And yet, if I look at the 141 Parker, I shouldn't harp on it, but at under 200,000, covering pretty much everything, including some additional operating costs, is there any way, whatever process we can do, so that the town can in fact commit to the funding such that Greg is free to actually engage in some kind of negotiation? I think the answer is no, it's got to go through a regular town meeting and appropriation process, but if there's any flexibility that can be found in there, I would encourage the support of the select board and town administration. Is there a way?
I think we need, this is me speaking. We need consistency on setting our priorities. And everybody needs to be part of helping to set the priorities. And everybody needs to see the whole picture of what is on the table versus just one item on the table at a given time. So then everybody can make the decision based on priorities, not just based on a silo because something happens to be before them at that given time. So I think as a community, we need to take a step back, take a pause, get all of our items on the table and talk about priorities. That's what we need to do. That's my, again, soapbox for the third time tonight.
And that's fair, and we're going to advocate for seniors.
Absolutely.
Well, the school department's gonna advocate, so
Yep.
we'll get along with it.
And I do believe, related to this topic, we'll be seeing the senior needs assessment from the UMass Boston assessment at an upcoming meeting quite soon. So we'll look for that presentation as well, I believe later in October. Are there other questions or comments from the select boards for the senior center committee currently?
Just one additional comment I think might be helpful, and I know you've done this in the past in previous presentations, but to encourage you to really make clear what the detailed functions of these kinds of resources would be for the seniors. I mean, in my earlier example, comparing the students, I think most of us know that students need to learn math, science, sports, all of those things, and so that obviously we know that they cut. So to clarify that, this isn't just a place for people to sit around and have coffee once a week, that there's actually a lot more to it than that. And I think that would greatly help people to understand what this is about, not just the cost of leasing, but also, okay, so what are all these different services
Right.
that are being provided?
And I think it's important to bounce off of that. Not only is it a law for communities to educate their children, but there are also legal requirements for towns to care for their seniors through a senior program of some type. We have it, we meet the obligation, but it's not to the level that is expected of a community of our size with the population that we have of seniors. And this is where we set priorities.
Yeah, and if I might, Mike, in responding to your point, I skipped over something I shouldn't have. One of the things that Amy has educated us about in terms of the need for the larger senior center, it's in the slide, but I think that the need for space for simultaneous activities. To your point, yes, a lot of people don't understand what you do in a senior center. And as I speak, at simultaneous activities, it could be an exercise class at the same time as a craft class and counseling for those seniors, whether it's text or nutrition or whatever, all need to go on simultaneously, which can't happen today in the same time. But that's an excellent reminder to us that the variety of things that go on there. And Lindsay, one of the other things that just came up in terms of, can we use an interim center on a permanent basis? The aging assessment study, I think, will help shape a piece of that. And I did see in your report, Greg, that it's now scheduled for the 15th of October. So. Thank
Any
you.
other questions from the select board?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come in today. I appreciate getting an update and getting some of the in-depth understanding of the work that you've been doing. And please pass that on to the rest of the committee as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
The entire committee. Great work.
As they say in the commercial, thank you for your support.
All right, we are moving on. Item 9, we're going to have to move to a later agenda. So we're going to go directly on to item 10, which is the Cultural District Enhancement Fund grant. And we have two topics under item 10. The first is from the Maynard Tree Committee on urban canopy enhancements.
Hey, everybody, thank you for having me. I'm Steve Smith, Maple Court, and I'm the vice chair of the Maynard Tree Committee. and if you would bear with me while I read my request. Maynard Tree Committee is preparing to apply for a DCR Urban Forestry Challenge Grant. And we're using that money to create what we would like to call a teaching alley and grove in downtown. In the municipal parking lot behind the Maynard Outdoor Store and along the Assabet Rail Trail in the spring of 2025. Our proposed education alley will feature 11 trees selected for their cultural and historical significance. We'll install these trees in Maynard's dense busy downtown to extend our current urban arboretum on Mason and Main and across from the movie theater. To provide shade to a popular regional rail trail and contribute to Maynard's walkability in an area directly adjacent to an environmental justice neighborhood. This will be accomplished in partnership with the DPW, who have committed resources to help us de-pave, meaning remove some of the concrete sidewalk areas that are unnecessary, and to help us dig tree pits in preparation for this project. To provide the necessary matching funds for this grant, we're respectfully requesting a reallocation of $3,000 of the total remaining balance of $3,178.37 that we currently have from 2 previous cultural district enhancement fund grants that were awarded to us in 23 and 24 for community planting projects, which were successfully completed and continue to thrive. Additionally, we're coming before you to ask for an additional CDEF grant of $3,000 to support the project. Through these matching funds, the project has the potential to raise another $14,000 of additional federal funding to disperse through the DCR to expand Maynard's urban canopy. If our DCR grant application is not successful, we would like to move forward with a scaled back version of planting. In other words, we would like to do less trees, but still move forward with the project. Using those funds and an increase in volunteer efforts. If our requests tonight are approved, we would also ask for a letter of commitment totaling $6,000 from the select board required as a match for the DCR application. I'm always asked for trees. And I apologize, I'm not as eloquent as Neil.
Tree heavy meeting for a pro-tree community. Any comments or questions from the select board?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
On the location along the rail trail, I'm sure you thought of this, but I'm curious. There's a lot of runoff that I think comes from the auto body shop, maybe behind that building.
Yep.
I've heard people speculate that it's heavy metals, it's slag. So is that going to affect the trees at all? And I know that there was a tree that was planted near there for the 150th that did not survive. I don't know if that was related, but what's the plan for that and is there concern?
So we're actually planting on the upper end of that slope, so we'll actually be above that. And we're also have taken soil samples from that area that we're sending off to the UMass Extension Service to have tested. And asking them, explaining to them what we're planting and making sure that the soils are suitable for planting prior to moving forward. That's already in process.
Okay, the image that I'm looking at, it's not that far up the slope. I don't know if this is just an approximation, but
It's
the
relatively close,
runoff
but it is above.
definitely covers this. Yeah, I live just above this and I walk on this all the time. So the runoff definitely hits that area, but if the soil sample comes back, then it would presumably be fine.
And the 150 tree primarily died because of the water table there is very high. So when we removed that tree, it was literally filled with water. So I don't necessarily think it was the runoff, more a high water table in that area that caused the demise of that tree.
Got it.
How about the expected increased traffic along that stretch of road when Jimmy McDonald's building opens and his residents are using that driveway as the driveway entrance into the new apartment building? Would increased traffic affect, and I'm not an environmentalist to the effect that I understand how the exhaust from the cars will impact young trees. Will that have an impact on these trees' ability to survive?
Pretty much all the trees we select and choose are ones that we believe do well in urban environments. So if you take a look at what we've done on Mason in Maine, we've had incredible success. We've actually only lost 2 trees in the 4 or 5 years that we've been coming before you to do these projects. And so I think that we'll do the same over there. Will there be some loss? Possibly, but I don't think it will be Jimmy's project will be a major impact.
And then my follow-up is, you mentioned an additional request for $6,000. Where would that come from?
So that would, well, we're hoping that the town would put that forward so that that would be matching funds that would come back to us. We have to have matching funds up front in order to do the project, and then we get reimbursed back from the DCR.
I guess then it's a question for Greg. Where would that come from?
I just want to clarify, because it could be me that's confused. Is the $6,000 combination of what's already been allocated and then this additional request of $3,000 for a total of $6,000, or are you asking for that and another $6,000?
And another $6,000, I believe, to match, that will come back to the town as funds from DCR.
Can you clarify what that means? So I pay 6,000 and then they cut me a check for $6,000?
I can help. Yeah.
So this grant in particular needs full allocation in advance of the grant application, and then once awarded, then you do, in essence, return the $6,000.
Huh.
But they need full allocation in advance.
So that's still, that's fine. Bureaucracy.
Honest, Greg?
No, it's all good. No, I think I would still recommend that. That's not in this evening's motion. I apologize for the confusion, but this application is to use the Cultural District Enhancement Fund, which currently has a balance of $103,000. So, and if I'm gonna get the $6,000 back, I would endorse that. So you might have to amend your motion. Or no, actually, you don't have to. You could just authorize me to commit the $6,000 of CDF funds, and I could do that on my own. But just to kind of make it transparent, just authorize me to make that commitment of CDF funds.
And where would that come from?
This CDEF. So the CDEF is the Cultural District Enhancement Fund. It's we are the
So
marijuana.
the money's there.
Yeah. You have $103,000.
Okay.
So I thought we were just asking for.
We're asking for a total of 9, right? I mean, the 6 will come back,
That's
but
it.
we're asking for an additional.
That's the math I'm doing too. So tonight I thought it was just an additional 3, but as it turns out, they're actually asking for
3 of which will come back.
6 will. Yeah, so it's fine. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Would anybody like to make a motion with the additional language authorizing the town administrator to commit up to 6,000 extra for leveraging the match back from DCR?
I will move to approve the application for the use of $3,000 from the Cultural District Enhancement Fund by the Maynard Tree Committee for the urban canopy enhancements, and authorize the town administrator to use an additional up to $6,000 for
Commitment to the matching grant.
commitment to the matching grant. And the reallocation of previously granted funds as presented, authorizing use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for supporting trees.
Very good. All right. Next up, we have a discussion on the town's parking meters and the potential for parking meter removal. And I believe we have Armin from the Economic Development Committee is going to come and present. Good evening.
Who are you guys?
My name is Armand Yarvigurian. I'm the chair of the Economic Development, live at 14 Deerpath, Unit 3. And I remain Steve Silverstein, Executive Director of Municipal Services.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I didn't just bring Armand here today. I also brought some additional heavies, Justin DeMarco, Chief Noble. We're talking about the parking meters, everybody has an opinion about the parking meters. After some analysis and basically going door to door, speaking with downtown businesses. We are of the mind that parking meters should be removed. You have the attached memo, which explains the reasons why. What we're advising the select board is complete removal. But there's also an alternative if you don't want to jump in to the deep end, and that would be in removing them just from the other port. This big one. Right, that's phase one. And then a subsequent phase could be the western part of Main Street, so around here, and then also Summer Street, where if anything, the meters are counterproductive and dissuade people from parking, because it's far and they think they have to pay. Really what it boils down to is the meters belong to a different time and place. When the mill had 4,000 employee cars, yeah, it made sense because downtown was congested. And things haven't been like that for the better part of 2 decades. So the traffic dynamics are markedly different. I do refer to the MAPC study, which is the most recent study, which was 2018, which was a parking analysis that was done. It basically said that even at peak times, only 1 out of every 2 spots of the 475 on and off street public spots are occupied. So there's more than adequate parking. What the concern is to a lot of the downtown businesses is having convenient parking in front of their store. But what I would argue is that the parking meters is not the way to solve that. There are other, less disincentivizing ways to manage turnover in front of the stores where business owners want clients in and out, and they want to give them that convenience. The 15-minute signs has been something that works well, and could be expanded, but otherwise getting rid of the parking meters I think it would be in the best interest of the town, especially of downtown, because right now they're being broken or filled with coins, being old and anachronistic is all goes to kind of ruin. I don't want to say ruining, but it works against the downtown and it's the allure to shoppers. So imagine, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's coming to Maynard for the first time. They want to park on Main Street or Mason. They go to put a coin in the machine and it doesn't work. So now they're a little bit panicked. Am I going to get a ticket? Am I not going to get a ticket? They don't know the secret that everybody in Maynard knows, which is that you don't have to pay the parking meters because the enforcement's not there. And the reason for that is because a lot of this has already been deliberated under the parking authority, which was specifically created by the select board 3 or 4 years ago to review downtown, what could make downtown thrive, and in receiving a lot of complaints from residents and businesses and a lot of suggestions, it was basically decided that the parking meters are counterproductive, and the only step needed now is to just go ahead and chop them down, honestly. You all know the parking meters. If you have any questions, we're open to them. And
I just want to add something too, because first of all, Steve has done a wonderful job of pulling all this together, because he had to go back into 632 and you've done a nice job of putting it together, and the survey that you ran was, I think, very important, and the result was there to be noticed. Just to piggyback on the fact of visitors coming from outside of town and trying to park and trying to feed the meter. I spent some time downtown and I witnessed a situation where this mother with the toddler gets out of the car and she tries to put money in the meter's not working. So then realizing that, she takes the toddler back by hand, opens the door, puts the toddler in a car, and I'm thinking she's gotta go find another spot, because she can't can't park the car there because she might get a ticket. So I went over and I said, are you looking for another spot because you're afraid you're gonna get a ticket? She goes, yeah. She goes, I can't get the quarters if they're sweeter. I said, don't worry about it, just leave the car here for now. I said, you're okay for now. So that to me is just a perception on people coming from outside visiting our town and trying to
you know, put money in a meter and the old fashioned way, and they can't get the monies in the meter. That's not a good, it's not a good look, from people coming from out of town and trying to spend money in our town, and enjoy what we have to offer. So, just take that in consideration, because it's not something that it's appealing.
Is there any particular need to do this tonight as opposed to being, can the select board consider for 2 weeks? Will that have any particular impact, just to frame the rest of the conversation?
The decision's not now, no, I don't, 2 weeks is not gonna make a difference. I would say the select board's gonna, you know, approve it, then it should be done before the weather changes over. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great point, because DPW, is, looking at having an easier way to plow, especially in Naylor Court. That becomes you know, if you take the meters out before the winter arrives, it'll be easier for them to plow. Is that right, Justin?
Yes, meter removal anywhere will be easier.
Okay.
Where's this funding come from? 100 grand? It seems like a large number.
CDA.
Yeah, for the CDA.
We won't
The
have
impact
100
fund,
grand if we spend
CDE,
six.
Did that too.
Same for the marijuana impact. fund.
Yeah,
That's
but
where it's
is there better?
Yeah, but that 6 is coming
Better
back.
use of that money?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Do we have a reasonable estimate as to how much money is in the meters right now?
We don't. So that's another, I guess that's a good point, is because
It
you
might-
with that money,
Yeah,
and it could be.
Maybe.
Although we-
$360.
$100,
But the-
$1,000?
My bigger concern is just the cost associated with, is there a better use of $100,000 than taking down parking meters? Just take the heads off of them and then presumably sell those because they have value, rather
They don't have
than,
value in America.
rather than putting them in a garage somewhere.
We could open up a museum.
Can I also ask, just in regard to the cost, sorry to interrupt you. but-
No, go ahead.
I'm looking at the invoice from VHB, I believe,
Mhm.
and the bulk of the cost seems to be related to traffic signs and not meters. So what is the actual cost of removing the meters? I'm not philosophically opposed at all to removing the meters. I agree with everything that you said about them. But that's not really what I see in this proposal. What this proposal seems to be about is signs.
Yeah.
So help me understand what the cost is of removing the meters, not the cost of the signs.
I think Justin.
He seems to be eager to.
Well, some of this is you have to understand at this point, there's actually 2 board members that started the initiation of the parking authority, and that is actually David and Chris, and there's actually only 2 remaining original members of the parking authority, which is me and Chief Noble, and actually before Chief Noble, Mark DeWatt. So this goes back more than 3 years, and a lot of this was a conversation of business owners coming to the select board complaining about multiple things such as traffic safety issues, parking meters, parking issues. It was a much grander holistic approach. So when we convened under the parking authority, our focus was all of the issues that were brought to light to the select board, which was not just the meters. In regards to parking regulation, turnover, how is this gonna have an economic development effect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So through that process, we had over a dozen public meetings where we discussed these conversations with a large stakeholder community in the business aspect that originally came to the board, and also kind of a door-to-door knocking situation with some volunteer committee members who were also technical experts in the parking field and managed multiple city parking businesses. Through that process, we learned that regulation was still a high level of priority. The parking meters are archaic, their revenue source was minimal in providing funding source for the town of Maynard, less than $10,000 a year. They did not even pay for the officer that was actually collecting the revenue source. So with that being said, we looked at it holistically as making sure that we understand, to David's point, if we just remove the heads, be reminded that the heads actually are the requirement for the 2-hour parking. Without that, enforcement can't be implemented. So signage is part of an MUTCD initiative. So if we still want to have regulated parking in 2 hours and we remove the meters, we have no enforcement agent, because there's no signage indicating that you are violating X, Y, and Z.
There's no sign listed here, though, that says 2-hour parking.
Yes, there is.
Can you show me?
So it's usually a baseline. So you have to understand, we had minimum funding to even do this plan, so technically you have what I like to refer as a 20% design set. So that plan set was done with minimum funding to try to give a holistic understanding, so if you have.
I have them if you want.
Go to the last, or not last page, but one of the last pages where it goes to traffic sign summary, it does list the PR.
This one?
No, it's.
Too soon.
Over here?
Right here. Yep, this indicates
That's
all of it. Yep.
Meter.
Yep, but no, this is the no meter parking, because we were also, you have to understand, plan is over 4 years old. And at that point, the idea and premise behind a lot of this was still, are we going to introduce new versions of meters? Then we went through a financial, yep,
They're on here.
yep, correct, yep, so that plan is 4 years old. So if we were to adopt a strategy that is removal of meters, that plan would have to be modified. So
Then
that's,
shouldn't we be seeing the modified plan before we even talk about what we want to do?
so that would be the conversation you have with the applicants in front of you, which can absolutely be.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's the plan, like,
Well,
I mean, you see my point.
Lindsay has brought up the VHB report. It's $80,000, well, that was in 2021.
So the costs are gonna be more.
Yeah, so that cuts a little bit further into Greg's 103,000 of which we're already giving away.
But the 80 also includes the 20% escalation.
Yeah, but so over the time frame of 4 years, the construction market has gone up over 45%.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll give you my perspective. Funding is obviously my paramount concern, as often as for all these things, so, with the $103,000, it's currently balanced with cultural district enhancement fund, again, that's money that's provided. As a negotiating condition of the host community agreement with marijuana establishments, they give us the community impact payments, so like not tax money, but we set that aside and move it to town meeting, and we put all that money into the CDEF. And it's been going towards trees and park benches and other sort of like downtown enhancements, which is perfect, it's great. And I do very much see that this is an appropriate use of that, like that, moving the parking meters for the economic advantages that could provide. It meets the demands, if you will, of the businesses, like I think that's a fair and appropriate use. But I'm doing the same math. If we were, since now I gotta give a extra $6,000 for trees that I'll get back, it doesn't matter. I think what I would be interested in the board's consent is the concept of removing the meters. And then you don't have to do that tonight, but I would be interested in having that direction, which would then give me direction to go back to these guys and say, now go back to VHB and figure it out. Because this plan needs to be updated. It's similar to what Jack was just earlier saying. I need a sort of like good faith that we're gonna be moving in this direction. Otherwise, like I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I know you don't either. So, but if you don't want the meters removed, then we won't do that.
I am not philosophically opposed to removing the meters at all. I think that we should do it, but I think we should have a plan to make sure that we know what we're doing before we vote to do it.
I'm okay with it, but to David's point, we kick the guy that's leaving around a little bit, the police chief, who doesn't, I don't know if it's.
I haven't been announced.
Well, we haven't been doing, parking enforcement for quite some time in Maine, right? So now there's a certain group of people that know they don't have to pay the meter. So they can't park there all day. Anyone who's gonna sit here and say there's a 2-hour limit. I go by Nation Street 3 or 4 times a day because I got nothing else to do during my day. And the same cars are there at 9 o'clock in the morning, or they're at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about that? Like, that's a bigger problem than meters. I don't have a problem with meters because up and down the entire East Coast, and I travel probably more than anyone in this room. And I'm using credit cards to pay for parking in Maine and Florida. I'm using quarters in Maine and Florida, and none of them work. None of the credit card machines work half the time in any of the states I'm in. None of the quarters and the rest, they don't work. And it's not just us, right? So we don't really need parking meters in most of the places we are. But what do you do about people that just sit there all day?
It is removing the meter.
That's a bigger problem to me than not collecting the 4 quarters every couple hours. Is that guy can't stay there all day.
That's been an issue for years, even when we had the parking enforcement officer, which is civilian, if y'all remember, like she used to walk down and there was times where she was ticketing the business owners and the employees who were parking there all day. Which is, obviously, it sounds counterintuitive to the request that we get from other businesses to remove the meters. So, and they're hurting themselves because they're not providing little customer turnover. And so like, it's kind of a balance, like, we could send an officer, I'm sure that could, I just don't think it'd be the best use of our times if we're using an officer to just like mark the tires to see how long they've been there. You would think that the businesses themselves would sort of provoke that turnover. And I don't know if there's like the perfect solution for any parking, because we've been talking about this for a long time. I signed for Megan Zamudo to this a long time ago to crack that nut. And there's no right answer. There's no perfect, this is what's gonna work for us. You can look at West Concord. I bet she's pulling her hair out to figuring out what's gonna be the best case for there, because I don't even know if it's still active, but there wasn't.
They're not.
When
They're not
they
active.
install the new meters and they're not charging on.
They're not.
Lovely. And you would press the button to get your first 15 minutes free.
If you're gonna,
Who was checking that?
if you're gonna make this decision, and you're gonna do this based on under the, you know, the guys of. We're helping the EDC, we're helping businesses. And these people come and they're the first people there in the morning, and they're the first cars to park on Nason, and they're the last cars to move at the end of the day. What is that doing for the people that you're trying to help?
I will say, don't you get calls, chief?
Yeah, and we, when we were doing the parking authority, there was a bunch of complaints about that. And we put it out to the parking authority, because I said, to really hone in on 2-hour parking, you need technology. You need to spend a lot of money to get cameras or new meters that actually outline like when somebody's paid there, or when somebody has. These meters don't keep a time on when the person went in, so. You know, and that wasn't really the way that anybody wanted to go, spend a few $100,000 to upgrade the meters. So we put it out to Sarah Cressy and the business community to put it into the downtown businesses. If somebody keeps parking at spots, tell us, we'll go have a conversation with them, because there's plenty of spots to park all day.
I know Armin.
Mason Street is different, because not as many businesses there, so people parking there all day, we're not getting complaints. We used to get complaints on Main Street, they don't park there anymore, because we told them where to park.
I know Armin knows this because he's as old as me, and I know he's been in that business before. But when you used to work for any retail establishment, where did you park?
I parked away.
The kids at Burlington Mall used to have to park at Creighton Park.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, when you work at Stop and Shop, you used to park out, you know, the Stop and Shop.
And I think
park out on Powder Mill.
To your point, Chris, I think the businesses need to start communicating with their employees and everybody else to park in municipal areas, so that they don't have to park. That's their job.
But I think.
So if I'm an owner of a particular business in Maynard, right, and I come every morning and I park my F-250 on Main Street, right? And my F-250 doesn't move till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. What am I gonna tell my
Well, he
employees?
spends a lot of time in there now, so he doesn't have to.
Or what am I gonna tell my employees?
No.
You know, so we all know who drives what vehicles. We all know who the owner, we all know what the owner of.
And they have the name of the business on the, here.
I get it. So that's my point. My point is, we're looking to help a specific group of people in town, right? And those are the business owners, who therefore help the rest of town. Like, there's gotta be some buy-in from that side of town to help us, help me help you, right? But you can't help me help you when, you know, the owners of the businesses are the only cars parked on Mason and Summer and Main Street during the day. You know, I don't know where to tell them, I come to park in Nail Court, and then they say, well, some of my customers park on there because I like to get out and walk around, but it's,
I will say that with this plan, because the 2-hour parking is on the meters, very small, very.
Yeah.
People don't know about it, especially if you're not paying the meters, you're not seeing 2-hour limit.
right.
This will put up those signage, that 2-hour limit
So,
to be, you know, which will give people a little more knowledge of what.
so I know we don't have to decide this thing, but can we get the 2024 map? Like how?
We just have to be engaged.
I just wanted to,
There is some soft cost to it.
No, the math, it will tell the 5 of us what it's gonna cost to take out the meters.
Oh, yeah,
Or what
that
it's
would be
gonna
helpful.
cost for the new signage, because, you know, and I appreciate all the hard work, and I know Megan and you guys did a ton of work. And every time we've adjusted something in town, we've talked about how many spaces might have cost us, like, you know, when Jimmy wanted to cut a hole in the curb, put the underneath parking. We talked about, we're gonna lose one here, but gain two there.
Yeah.
So I know everybody's cognizant of the parking issues. I'm just looking to get a number for $20-25, $20-24, so that we know what's in the CDEF and where we have to get the money from.
I was thinking, but I'm kind of leaning away from it, is, I was thinking about asking the board to authorize up to $100,000, because at the time I thought that's how much we would have left over. But, I think this is all great feedback, and we can go update, since I'm not really hearing no about removing the park meters, I think that's the direction we need.
Can I just ask another question about parking meters?
Jeff hasn't chimed in.
Yeah,
Oh.
in regards to parking meters and enforcement, if we get rid of all the parking meters and we have signs that say 2-hour parking, is that something that gets enforced or no? There's, or, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
are there
yeah.
violation or?
Again, the meetings haven't been enforced because we actually started
I know.
a pilot to see if it would still be parking and everything. And then there was always parking, and then we were moving towards that way, making left, and we get everything kind of solved. But yes, I mean, everything, handicap parking and everything, all the money that is from parking tickets is everything but me,
Yeah,
you know?
Okay.
It's not metered, but, yes, we have ticketed, a lot of times it's educational because we don't wanna keep going down and having somebody keep parking there and ticketing them. Because it's not a big ticket either, you know? We'd rather have them park where they want. It was a dentist that came every Wednesday, that somebody was complaining on it, go, does anybody talk to him, sit down, talk to him? He's never had an issue, Dave's never had an issue with them parking there, same with, so a few other places.
I'll just add one comment to that. So we did go through the pilot exercise, which is what Chief Noble is referring to and Greg is referring to. We received more pushback going through the pilot process of enforcement than we did prior to enforcement. But that being said, if we remove the meters and don't put up signs, this is that like double-edged sword is, if we get a call of somebody violating, technically, legally, we can't enforce it.
no, I'm not opposed to the signs, it's just that. Like, none of this proposal represents what this conversation is reflecting, which is we should remove the meters. Everyone seems to be pretty much in agreement with that, Jeff, unless you have a different opinion. But this looks like a signage plan, and so we're talking about two obviously related but slightly different things, particularly when it comes to the economics of it. So I think we need more information or better information.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the signage plan, just go back in time when I said this, our original.
Yeah.
Inception of a parking authority was far more than just.
But you're asking us to approve all these signs, like there's signs here that whoever. But there's a lot of stuff, like, that don't make sense, so I think we have to either divorce the two things or update this so that it makes more sense.
No, I think it should, because as.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, go, I think Greg, I wanna make sure we have a full plan mapped out, so I think we wanna go down with the parking meters and then up with 2-hour signs, and if we can do that in one fell swoop, that's ideal. So I'm philosophically aligned with the removal, but also want to understand the costing proposal just to make sure that I know what's going to happen and where it's going to come from. Which
Yeah,
I think is the consensus that we have on the board right now.
Yeah, just one last comment. The only thing I care about as far as removing, if you remove the damn meters, I'm not one with sign pollution. I would say put up the 5 signs we've got that say 15-minute parking in the 4 spots that we've got, and that's it. Nothing else. And then don't have, because we're not going to enforce anything. It's never going to be enforced because it just isn't. And so, you know, you look at some of our neighboring communities, I'm thinking Hudson is the one that people always talk about. They don't have meters. They don't.
Sign.
They have signs.
Signs are fine, but do we need to spend like $100,000 on
Yeah,
this many?
no, not
signs? It's just-
100,000.
Yeah.
A sign at the end of the street, maybe?
No, there is requirements, so you need at the beginning and the end and every 25 feet. So there is standards that have to be met in regards to regulation procedure. We have a different phase, so we can definitely review the phase. So perfect example, if we looked at this very holistically, again, plan is 4 years old and dynamics change within that. But if you wanted to remove the idea of eliminating parking regulations, remember, you are the regulatory authority here. So these are the conversations we need to have. Is if you wanted to remove the meters and then do not put a regulation up over here on Main Street prior to the post office, prior to the bridge, that's a conversation piece that we would need feedback on. If you only want to regulate Main Street proper from 115 down to McDonald and Nathan Street from Summer Street to Main, we would need to know that regulation. Technically, right now, they are already regulated by your board before you. So if anything, you would remove those regulations by adopted decree, and then you would gear us towards what you want. So I'm fine with any direction you wanna go. But just again, to the point of, if someone were to call, because someone's parking in a spot, say 3 days in a row, and there's no regulations, the cops can't enforce it, even if they wanted to. So those are the conversation pieces, like we've gone through those exercises.
What I'm kind of hearing is to kind of put it all together is, I think I'm gonna task, Steve or Justin or both of them, to come up with a new plan, probably within $100,000. That's gonna accomplish what we have to accomplish, potentially even reduce the scope to just the downtown area, even if that means not having signs to enforce outside of the downtown area. And I mean, like, the triangle, like you did, like Justin, that was very clever, like.
Not the backside of the triangle, because I think it's right, it makes sense not to include Summer Street.
But that's what I'm saying, what I don't wanna do is change the policies in the future, if we do see there's an issue with sort of like turnover of vehicles outside of the heart of downtown. I don't think we should change the policies, what we should then do is then put up the signs. So if that needs to be an issue later, but I think like $100,000 is probably good, see what you can do with $100,000 of removal and signage.
Or less. Yeah. I'm just saying, this is like $100,000 of unrestricted money that we can use for downtown. Is this the best use of it? I mean, do we all agree that, like, does it have to be the full $100,000 when this is unrestricted money that we can use for downtown beautification, infrastructure and cultural
Think of
district?
things we might want to do at
So,
Memorial Park.
Yeah, I would just say like be judicious.
Well, that's
you know.
true. The concept would be, the more we invest in the downtown, the more return we get. So
Sure,
I
totally agree.
would say this is money that we bargained for, we didn't know was coming. It is one time, like the host community agreements are not allowed for that community impact payment anymore, which is a separate conversation. What we wanna, I've discussed ways that we need to sort of like replenish this in other forms, but it's not gonna be how it is now. And don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If we don't wanna spend that money because we don't know how much more money the trees committee is gonna need, I'm not to patronize them, but I'm just saying, like, right now, that's the bulk of the requests that you get. I'm not to diminish like the importance of trees, I think that's beautification that's needed. But we might be able to find other ways to fund that in the future. This might be the best shot we have of taking care of the meters downtown, which could go, I think, Greg Johnson's opinion, that is a well worth investment that we've been talking about for 4 years now. So I think it's a fair trade-off. That's my 2 cents.
I would just like to point out that I've now lived in Maynard for 30 years. And quite literally, when I talk to other people, friends in the UK or wherever, and I talk about one of the reasons why I like Maynard, several reasons, and in the top 5 is that I can always find a place to park. I talk about rockstar parking at pretty much anywhere I want to go in Maine.
They know it's you.
True. But obviously, aside from the occasional,
Are you on the
Friday night when you're.
Sitting in one of the parking spots?
You don't have 150.
Yeah, so I don't know how that would change. And obviously, one of the other things we want to do is to attract more people into Maine, more business. So would that significantly affect availability of parking? I'm not sure, but
That would be a good problem to have, like,
Yeah.
parking problem is an indication of strong economics.
Mhm.
So I would love for people to complain
Yeah.
about not being able to find parking, that's not always the case, right?
And also, if you take away the parking meters now, who's to say that you can't do it, put them back in the future? Right, the funds are there, we, have drones or robots doing this, looking at the corners, but so just for now, it's the right solution.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's not,
Or you can put in
It's
a
not-
cruiser and just drive around.
it's not perfect, and it does require that
It's
commitment.
expensive,
Yeah.
You also you can also get a parking with advertisement on it, people. Advertisers or whatnot,
Mhm.
just like the gas station ones.
Oh, yeah.
They would get electronic though, wouldn't they? And that would be a bit ugly, yeah.
All right, I think we have some broad conceptual alignment. If there's no other comments from the select board, I think we'll let the team regroup and come back to us.
Yeah.
All right,
Sure.
fantastic. Are there any other comments? All right, great. Well, thank you. And I know this, as we said, a multi-year conversation, so appreciate everybody's work on this.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 11. We have 2 contracts for review. The first is for the local 114 public safety telecommunicators, and this is an MOA.
That's right, Mr. Chair. So the memorandum of agreement, was the conclusion to months of, I think, very cooperative, very patient negotiating with the New England Police Benevolent Association, NEPA, Local 114 Public Safety Telecommunicators. That's the town's dispatcher. And so the assistant town administrator, Stephanie Doug, and myself sat with the negotiating team, the dispatchers, and it went very well, very amicable, very cooperative, collaborative. I was very appreciative of it. And here's the results. So I strongly recommend the board consider ratification of the MOA, which is the sort of highlights of the change conditions between the collective bargaining agreement that had been in existence, and then the proposed new collective bargaining agreement, which has terms of July 1st, 2024 until June 30th, 2027. It's standard for your deal. I think it's budgeted for. I think it really supports the improvement and retention efforts that we're trying to make with the dispatchers. The dispatchers have just through the nature of their position has a certain turnover expectation, but I think this really reinforces the recognition of what they contribute and doing what we can to sort of, as I said, sort of retain them. So I have my thoughts.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, my thanks to everybody involved in those negotiations. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the memorandum of agreement with the New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 114 Public Safety Telecommunicators for July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2027 as presented, and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Seconded.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. All right, fantastic. And we have a second contract here, which is a proposal for a sidewalk and curb ramp management plan, which I believe Justin is going to discuss.
Good evening, everyone. Make this quick. This contract is in reference and collaboration with our pavement management plan. If you're unaware, we do not have a analytical sidewalk management plan outside of kind of an old-fashioned assessment approach. This would bring into light a modernized sidewalk replacement plan, very similar to our pavement management plan, with high-level index categories, identifying appropriate use of future funds for sidewalk improvements and enhancement. It also can be combined with a future ADA transition plan upgrade. So curb ramps, things of the nature, which will help identify non-compliance issues across our pedestrian infrastructure. This request is going to be funded with our balance under our Chapter 90 funds. It will not interfere with our planned pre-approved pavement management plan, which includes Fletcher, Heights, Allen, and then the emergency paving and milling of Country Lane and Jackson Country Lane and Windmill Drive. So we anticipate being able to afford all of those with our current Chapter 90 balance. We were very lucky with our Concord Road Acton intersection with that we did not have to break into our Chapter 90 funding with localized allocations, which is allowing us to move forward with this plan set. If there's any questions.
Are there any questions? So the result here, Justin, would look like a map not unlike the pavement condition index maps that we've looked at before.
Correct, yes, it will also help us start to forecast financially the next 5 years out, investments in future sidewalks beyond just our local requests. It will help the board and Capcom plan financially to meet standards that our industry across sidewalk assessment process as well.
Very good.
It's a nice tool.
Any other comments or questions?
I did try to highlight on the memo, so everybody is well aware of like our pavement process. Be aware that we have bid out our pavement plan. We're waiting to receive awards within the next 3 weeks.
So in about a meeting or two, you may see contracts for the paving award, which will also fall in balance with this.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yes.
Would anybody like to read the motion?
Move to approve the contract number 1474 with Beta Group, Inc. for engineering services for a sidewalk and curb ramp management plan in the amount of $62,000 as presented, authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved. Bless you.
Second.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
and I'm yes as well. Thank you, Justin.
Excellent,
Thank
thank you.
We'll move on to item 12, which is planning for a special town meeting next Monday.
So, Mr. Chair, it is well underway. So we had a very successful, but pretty standard, pre-town meeting on Monday, yesterday, with, hosted by Big County and Town Moderator. We went over the logistics and sort of the expectations on it, and it's the kind of standard format, and everyone seems to be on board. The only real change between prior years and this one is I have a new town clerk, but I have a lot of confidence in her, and she's communicated already with Dick County, so it will be fine. I put together a draft of a presentation and the motions, which I refer to as the script for the board to look at, and I plugged in how the board had already split up which board member would give which articles, and I just plugged that in and I put a little blurb which corresponds with the PowerPoint. And I'm collecting the PowerPoint presentations from some of the other groups, like I got the one from CPC. I got the blurb from the solid waste and recycling task force, and then I think I got my emails, and I think I got the school committee's presentation. So for the bleachers, so I'll put those in. I think what I'm interested in is you don't have to get it tonight, but as you guys look at those, whatever I wrote for you, if you can either tell me if you want something changed or not. You can say whatever you want when you get to footy. But I try to sort of make it so that you can, follow along. You can, have it in front of you. But again, you can say what you would like. And then, Mr. Chair, I believe you were interested in getting the board's endorsement for the message that was drafted, and that's the motion that's on the board tonight.
Yes, and so that message is very similar to the one I authored for the board last spring with updates per project as appropriate. And so I hope you all had time to review the language behind that. Especially with conversations like the bleachers, I added a line relative to the 40B down there. So just want to make sure that we're all comfortable and want to make sure I'm speaking for the board when I write this document, not for myself, which I'm tried to do.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you've done what several of us have at least have talked about, which is trying to educate the public about the broader picture of capital expenditures that we're looking at over the next likely few years. And so I think that does a fair job of doing that. I would just hope that we can get that message out firmly to the people that we do indeed have a broadly educated set of people who are going to be voting on this next week.
Thank you, Mike, and it fits in our goals too. So any comments either on the presentation, on the language, or on that message?
Jeff, can you still hear us? Row.
Jeff, you muted yourself and your video went out.
He's still there. Because his name wouldn't be there if his connection wasn't there, right?
Yeah, he is still there. Well, it's up to you if you want to move on. Without him.
Well, let's take the leadership role and move on without him. Because it's 9:30.
Yeah,
right.
Who wants to?
Mr. Clerk, would you like to do it as the next official?
Sure, yeah, so hold on, let me just pull up the right one. Special town meeting.
My apologies, I had to step away for just a moment. Thank you for stepping in, Mike.
Okay. Oh, you're here, okay, all right.
Yeah. Move to approve the message from the select board to town meeting voters as presented. for the special town meeting scheduled for October 7th, 2024.
Second,
All in favor? Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes,
David,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you all.
So we'll have those printed. Which I think that's the expectation, like we'll have those printed. A couple hundred, we'll talk about it, how many we think we should have, so, but I'll put it on the website as well.
Very good. Any other commentary, questions, or concerns as we head into town meeting?
regarding the 40B. Can we, if we make a QR code for like Maynard Fest, could we do the same thing, just have it on the desk as people walk in, like, do you want to know more about 40B? Or what's happening, so that people can scan it on their way in?
That's kind of what my takeaway was.
Okay, I wasn't
So-
sure if you knew it was both.
No, I'm glad-
Maynard Fest. Okay,
Clarifying, yeah,
Um,
I appreciate that. So yeah, my expectation is in the next couple of days, I'm gonna tell this guy to come up with that little slips of paper maybe, or something like that. We can just say like, 182 and, but again, like that 40B guide is already on the.
yeah, that's what I mean, I think just helping people,
So we just want to get people to that one page. And then.
yeah,
so
that QR code.
And I would just question if it's just a QR code, that's gonna cut a lot of people out. Because
Okay.
I believe there are still a lot of people in our community who are either not QR code literate or who just say,
No.
"No, I'm not gonna look. I want-
I
I
That's
want-"
fair.
I think we could do both, I
Yeah.
think the
Yes,
QR code
Yes,
gets like
definitely,
much
yes,
people out of the way.
yes,
And then
but-
there's also direction to go to the town. hall.
That's how I read it,
It's-
like, it's a little like slip of paper, it says like, like 182, I don't know what you say, but something like, go to the town's website. Or follow this QR code.
Is there any feasibility and even sense in having some kind of a one-page summary? Because I'm just a firm believer that there are a lot of people who will say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna look at it now.
Yeah.
While I'm here with people, and even if it's just a summary, it gives them some indication, and then with the QR code and the website information for more. I
think
know it's a big ask, because somebody has to do that. In terms of good communication, for something that is this important, I would advocate for that.
You said you had something?
Yep, I won't answer. Well, Bill, so it's like 3 or 4 pages.
Let's stop, we could. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Get a
we
one
can-
page kind of bill.
yeah.
We could then have the QR code and then also, front
You know-
page, back page, to give it out of.
In all seriousness, though, to Mike's point, if you're gonna adequately lay out the 40B, it's not a one page.
No, it's so complicated.
No,
You know,
but it's
there's so much to it, and if you're gonna condense it, what do you leave out? Or what do you, it's,
It's really hard.
send them to the website.
Right.
The idea that there's a lot of people in Maine that don't have access to a website is,
It's not that they don't have access, I'm not saying that, I'm saying that in the initial impulse that people have to actually go and read something.
if you're worried about the people that show up at town meeting, you don't have to worry about them, because they're there, and that means that they're paying attention and they can do it.
Yeah.
Right,
It's people that don't show up that have that worry. Like the people that are at town meeting are seeing the information online somewhere, because there's really nowhere else to get it. So they know how to get there and how to find it. The people that aren't at town meeting, they don't care anyway. For the most part, I mean, that's.
There might be a compromise, so that if, sometimes you'll see boards and committees, or that have master plan or otherwise, we'll do like, a poster board. And so it gets your attention, we're not necessarily pissing anything out, but we're trying to say like, if you didn't know, there's this proposed. The housing complex, go to the website, like that's something to get their attention, but you're right, I'm reluctant to print off 300 pieces of paper that people are gonna be like, yeah, and then no, so. There might be a workaround,
I like the idea of poster board. Can you do that in 7 days?
I'm looking at that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't wanna make any promises, but I think that's,
What the sold out for
Yeah.
Maynard Fest, so.
that might be true.
And then they have enough.
Sure, but we'll talk about it. Okay. But thank you for that input.
When is town meeting?
Next Monday.
Monday.
After Maynard Fest.
We should just have it right after Maynard Fest next year. It's just everyone from Maynard Fest, go right down to,
Yeah.
We just have outdoor town meetings.
all right.
Good.
Any other questions on special town meeting planning? All right, very good. I did get one question which may confuse some other voters on the Article 1 on somebody thought we had $2 million back that we could just spend somewhere as opposed to the much smaller amount there related to the Green Meadow school debt reduction. So that question may come up, but I think we'll be able to handle it. All
Would you like
right.
me to right now for the board or no? I guess we'll talk about that when it comes within the next month. Y'all will be hearing from the chief assessor about tax classification. That's relative.
Very good. All right, moving on to item 13, which is select board goals. I believe we have had two members, Greg, now have comments somewhere here. Is that correct? If I'm interpreting the documents I'm looking. So one is at the end of the select board's draft and one is in a draft B.
Yeah.
Greg, I got that correct? Yes.
No, that's right. I didn't want to interrupt. So yes. So I can help however the board would like me to. I can sort of try to combine these comments into another document, or it's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you would like to give more time for the board to give some consideration about what the comments they see and further contributions. Whatever you'd like to do.
I'd like to try to bring this to a close and get something in a relatively short order if we can, but I'm open to the rest of the board in that. And where is the rest of the board?
Well, I'll just own that the edited document is mine, so I made comments. I tried to just, I really just like wordsmithed it a little to clarify a little bit of the language. And then added in one or two things, but I'm not wedded to any of that, so if people have different opinions, we could remove any of that. I don't know what the best process is for group editing though.
It's a tough one, and the one we run into every year when we try to do this document, I think. I'll own to the other set of commentary about suggested additions that we can go in there. I'll note on Lindsay's at the office hours was my suggestion, and if it's not we can strike that. I think that's the best course of action where we are right now. So just wanted to propose it as a brainstorming idea, but let's remove that and we'll simplify that conversation.
Stricken in your comments, like in your draft?
I just said, I don't know if office hours is most effective, if people are actually gonna show up for that. I'm wondering, like, would it be better if we did like a quarterly Zoom info session and we made sure we never had a select board forum on there? People answered questions. I was just trying to think of like other things that might actually, Greg just made a horrible face in response to that, so.
Is that a tall order? Make
Maybe
sure
so.
no one else signs it. I don't know.
But we don't have to strike that at all. That I actually didn't cross it out because I wasn't sure if people felt strongly. I have no problem doing office hours. I just don't know if people will come to that. If there are other things we could.
Yeah, I don't think office hours would generate
That
too
would
much activity.
get more people, or like, I don't know, have we ever tried doing a Q&A like just before town meeting starts for an hour for anybody who wants to show up and just ask any question?
Moderators meetings.
Well, so technically.
Well, before town meeting starts.
No, that technically happened last night. So, per the town charter, the finance committee hosts a public hearing before every town meeting, and,
How many people
that's
show?
turned
Gotta
out.
go.
I go,
Yeah, so that's the
So-
thing.
yeah, so like, there's only so much you can do, like, people, you can lead them to water, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's what I mean. I think office hours, like, I don't know that. So is there something else?
So I don't know that finance meeting is broadly advertised, as an information session to the public. I think we could, if we wanted to create a version that's more targeted, less on the finance committee, deliberates amongst themselves, and more that we hold a session that is meant for the public to come, where we have a couple minutes on each article presented, and then open it up for questions and just see where people are at. And I think that format is something that we could do, maybe limited to select board supported articles, if we're doing it as the select board. But I think there's space to explore a creative way to do messaging and improve messaging to the town along those lines.
Well, what I have seen in Littleton and Acton, both on their public access, which you turn ours on and it's a blank screen essentially, yet they tout the WAVM. They have essentially a member of the select board of the finance committee, either or, and sometimes both, go up and basically they say, this year's town meeting is as follows. Article 1 is they have it up on the screen and they talk about what it's all about. They talk about the implications, etc. A yes vote will mean this, a no vote will mean that. And then they repeat it over and over and over again. Littleton does it. It's not back to back, but you turn it on at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's on. You turn it on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's on again. Because they have programming. And that's the way that they get people to understand what's on their town meeting warrant. We could do something like that if WAVM is working. I don't know.
I think that's fair and that's clever, and WAVM does now have a new director, so it might be something we can engage with them to see what they can do. My advice to the board is you're getting into a certain level of details that's beyond the scope of what you're trying to get the goals, which now you're talking about how to execute the goals. Lovely. I want to kind of remind you guys, if y'all want, I can synthesize the goals that Lindsay, Blake, and Jeff, and put something together, and then at the next meeting, I'm just trying to help.
That's fair enough.
So like at the next meeting, I can give you a clean version.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly found when I was wrestling with this over the weekend and trying to strike a balance between writing out what our general responsibilities are anyway. And of course we want, clean water, and of course we want improved roads. I mean, that's part of our responsibility versus, notes of emphasis. That maybe in the course of the next year that will be, it's not that we're not doing the other stuff, but does it truly reflect efforts that we hope to make in the next year over and above what we have done previously? And I think so. It's trying to make sure that this becomes a useful document that truly reflects, emphasis that we want to place on our efforts in the next year. And I think this is what I see so far is good progress to that. But it is, I guess what I'm trying to say is that's the challenge that I found is balancing just what we're supposed to do anyway versus what's useful for the town.
So I have some direction I can help, Mr. Chair, if you will. So I don't think the board, you don't have to take any action this evening.
No, and I think this is a good discussion. So I think you're getting feedback that you would need to craft something that we can bring to a conclusion here on these. I did put a bullet point here on titled it "Holding a dedicated session on understanding the school district's operating needs over the next 3 to 5 years." That's kind of in direct response to the school committee informing us that they'll be pursuing an operational override of some magnitude at the annual town meeting, and I added the 3 to 5 year just to be in alignment with our desire for some more medium range planning, but was interested in feedback on that particular bullet point from everyone else, or format open to changes. I think yeah, and it could be at a quad board or something like that as well.
I think that's a
great idea.
Yeah.
And actually, I might put that under one of the goals that I modified was basically, I have so many documents open now. Implement best practices for long-term planning. So maybe that is a tactic under that goal. But I think it's a great idea and we should work that in somehow.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't turn into the traditional, the meetings that we've had, whenever we've asked the schools for that type of insight, it turns into nothing but propaganda. And then it becomes somewhat controversial because it's just that and not really helpful at the end of the day. Because
I think
it's just
if we can provide the forum.
It's a wish list as opposed to here's what our plan is, and it's just not productive. The wish list, we have a wish list too, we could present and to them, it would be viewed the same way with open eyes and looking at us, this you could tell them we want a senior center and we want it, within the next year and a half, and nope.
I think to help improve a facilitated conversation, we should have a conversation amongst ourselves about what we would want to see in very kind of targeted questions relative to what we see at the February meeting, where it's the same kind of update every year. Given the differences between this year and a normal year in terms of the school budget. So I think we should do that, and I think that would help frame the conversation and improve the communication, and open to other suggestions on how to make that maximally beneficial for all parties. I do think we should get more tactical and more data driven when we can. I think the school committee has begun to do that. Okay. But and again, we don't want to over-index on the tactics. I think we're aligned on the broad strategy goal there. Any other comments or thoughts? Ray, do you think you have what you need to take another stab at the draft as we have it now?
Yeah, Lindsay did a lot of work in particular, so I'm gonna make sure I have the Word document format and clean it up. Yeah.
All right, very good. Forward progress.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to item 14, which is related to geothermal well installation for the new Green Meadow Elementary School.
That's right, Mr. Chair. So our project manager from Colliers, Phil Palumbo, has been, and myself, have been in communication with town council, trying to make sure that we're actually very kind of similar to how the board considered making sure the parcels were identified properly for the solar array at the, I believe that was at the high school, wasn't it? So kind of similar. This is kind of the details about where the geothermal wells are going to go and which parcels they're going to cover. So it's identified that we want to make sure that there was clear authority to put the proposed geothermal wells, which again is sort of like the heating and cooling system proposed to be net zero carbon for the elementary school. But that well field kind of tips into certain parcels, and we want to make sure that it was clear that the ownership of those parcels, which includes the select board, and the use of those parcels is authorized for the geothermal wells. So town council recommended this motion that you see in front of you, which again sort of covers it. And we're not talking about a lot. Like if you look at the maps, it like dips a little bit into this like sliver. That's how all these parcels always are. Like there's always like a little cutout here and cutout there. And that's what we're talking about. It just dips into a new parcel. So I think it's fine. This really just, I presume no one would have known that, like a few feet in is now select board land, but for the purposes of making sure everything's on the up and up, if the select board, so wishes, you can grant the authorization for the school department to, again, do the installation of the geothermal wells for the school. It just sort of fits with all the plans. It's not very controversial, isn't it?
Questions or comments?
What is Zero Grade Road?
Again, that's just like the made up address number for that random parcel. I'd have to bring up the map.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
okay. But is it a legitimate address?
I don't think so. I think it's just the what's the number of the address.
So,
yeah.
So I mean, so if someone's looking at this, I want to, and got people in town that want to nitpick every little thing, what are they gonna say? Where is that?
Okay, yeah, so that's fair.
Do we have a accurate, should our motion have an accurate address?
How about that? Yeah, that's fair. It says Zero Grade Road. The property card lists it.
Can we approve it, contingent upon the actual address being included?
Or can we omit the address and say as shown, on the attached plan?
I'm okay with that, and we'll include the plan in the minutes.
Yeah,
I don't know if you think that's
I just can imagine one of our in-house town lawyers just coming at the schools or somebody because the address is Zero Grade Road and they own Zero Grade Road and it's down at the end of the street by the Sudbury Town Line or something.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. That's fair. So yeah, I think that's a clever workaround, Mr. Chair. So just remove the address and instead just.
So it would be Move to grant a license to the school department for the installation of geothermal wells, panels, and related equipment for the Green Meadow Elementary School on the parcel of land as shown on the attached plan, and further authorize the chair to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate the purpose of this vote.
Seconded.
Greg, you're good with that reading of the language?
I'm already thinking it. I appreciate you asking. I just want to make sure it's clear. So I'm not the lawyer, and it was counsel that wrote this. You're not gonna like this, but I'm gonna try to convince you to change your mind, Chris. So, I just want to make, if council wrote Zero Grade Road and they had the same documents that I'm looking at, I would recommend you include that address. But to address your point of confusion, we will in the minutes and otherwise, we'll say, yes, it's Zero Grade Road, but it's that plan and it's that parcel.
Oh, so Zero Great Road as identified on the plans submitted.
Sure.
I
It says
will
and shall not be your signature.
withdraw my motion and then.
Zero Great Road does come up on Google,
As what?
something near Erickson's ice cream.
Yeah, so we're giving some guy on Erickson's.
We're not. I mean,
It's not, I don't know, it's across from Hastings Street.
I think like the plans are the plans.
On Hastings
But
Street, right as you're going to.
listing an
Stowe.
address and then showing it on the plan.
What to just leave zero out? Located at Great Road as identified in the attached plan,
I'm okay with that.
without the zero.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's try again. Move to grant, I withdrew the previous one.
Got you.
Grant a license to the school department for the installation of geothermal wells, panels, and related equipment for the Green Meadow Elementary School on the parcel of land located on Great Road as shown on the attached plan, and further authorize the chair to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate the purpose of this vote.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Chris,
I am.
Lindsay,
Yeah,
David,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, very good.
You get that?
So the other update is they're moving on. Have they did they delay blast?
No, they delayed it.
They delayed it, right?
So I heard
Yeah.
tomorrow.
no, they've said, well, maybe tomorrow, every day they say maybe tomorrow, and then it doesn't happen, and all the kids are like so excited about it.
So no, we don't know when. Presumably as early as tomorrow.
Did we talk about the blast party in here, or did we talk about it somewhere else?
Remember, did you mention the blast party last? Lindsay?
No, you only.
No, I know where
It
we
was
mentioned
in,
it
it
was
was in one of the
when we
school
met
meetings, at the
uh,
Green Meadow meetings.
down in, we were having a conversation down in the Bean.
There was but they talked about it.
But they might have mentioned it last night.
It came up in not last night's school committee, the prior one. So just so everyone knows, they had prior to the starting of the blasting, they had a blast party for all the kids in Green
Oh,
Meadow.
yeah,
They gathered them all in and all
Yeah.
the teachers, they told everybody, they had, they had public safety people, they had everyone in there, they told all the kids what was coming.
Yeah.
What was happening, what to expect. And, like one kid said, where are the trees gonna go into the sky when they blow up? Like a lot of different questions, and all the kids get bracelets,
Little rubber bracelets.
little rubber bracelets, it said blast party,
Yeah.
or something, whatever it said, but yeah, so it's pretty cool. Well,
They had other-
very well received by, like, my daughter's a teacher there, so it was very well received by the staff and everybody else. It was a big hit.
The
What
kids
is
were
it?
definitely excited, I think they're also
They're
trying
waiting.
to get ahead, the kids are waiting, get ahead of the fact that twice a day for like 2 months, that whole building's gonna shake and gonna like kick up dust. and
No,
dirt.
that's
And
not.
like,
But I mean, like,
no,
this,
it's into November.
no, I meant the shaking part. That got brought up at last night's meeting. At this
Did it?
meeting. So there, it is a blasting, there will be vibrations, but,
especially.
yeah, I know you don't think it's an earthquake, and I just in case Facebook is like, "Oh, the building's gonna shake," no. It's gonna be, there will be some vibrations. But it's meant to be, evaluated so that it shouldn't disrupt what was it, a horsehair insulation, which is like the thinnest type of building material. So like if the weakest building material, like the little piggy that built his house out of hay, that should not fall over. That's how weak this blasting should be felt. So maybe they won't feel it, which probably I need to.
They might not,
Yeah.
we heard from teachers when we were there for curriculum night that they're feeling the effects of the construction equipment going by.
Well, that's true.
And so I don't know how it compares, but,
That's probably just as heavy, because those are heavy.
Yeah.
and it goes really close.
Speaking of which, the other thing that came up at the meeting, the last night, was approval of the additional construction road.
Yeah.
Going in behind
That's
the
great.
baseball field there, so that will leave.
Whoever made that happen, thank you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Justin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The gate opening into Crow was just a real mess. And so this is, sure, maybe yeah. Yes, that was even worse. And I think planning board was like, no, definitely not, but that is just a lot better, I think.
Yeah.
We will get a butters. Be prepared.
Yeah, we know.
I'm sure, but it's better than like an excavator running over a toddler, I'll take all the complaints from the abutters.
You are? Is that what you're gonna?
Yes, I'll give myself one.
I don't know if we've met this butter yet.
Probably not.
But I concur and I commend Justin for coming up with that. I mean, like the collaboration, but like that was an initiative and it's, we'll see. There's no perfect frictionless way to do this, but.
I'd forgotten that it was an emergency access route anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also, Mike kindly brought up last night, I had concerns about the air quality inside the schools once they start blasting. And what the particulate and CO2 levels will be, and if there would be any air quality testing. Also, I think Massachusetts has a bill that is about to mandate that schools do air quality testing regularly. Massachusetts and New York both do. And there are federal standards, but I don't think the town is required to comply with them. Yeah, so there are federal standards as far as public health is concerned. And so Mike did ask, and I think that Phil said that they do plan to do that, even though they're not required to, so we're appreciative of that also. Because I imagine a lot of particulate is gonna get kicked out.
But also highlighting the fact that they have the filters in place anyway, and it was commented that the custodial department, they have sufficient stock of additional filters to replace them more frequently than they do. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the filters, there's
Metal
a
has-
purification system that recycles.
Metal
that,
doesn't have. Yeah, so you're talking about a building that has operation windows, which goes back to the asbestos.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, the Green Meadows mechanical technology doesn't have a turnover rate, which is why each classroom has a singular UV style of filtration during COVID. So there is extra enhancement, but not what you would think in a traditional mechanical setting now. There is no fresh air exchange focus point for Green Meadow, which actually in this particular helps. As long as the teachers don't open the window.
But even if the windows are closed, particulate can still get in.
Only so we don't have fresh air intakes through that process outside of leaks in the windows that could be
Leaks in the
identified and things of that nature.
So are you saying there are air purifiers in the classrooms that are recycling the air?
They were provided during
During
COVID
COVID.
and prior to that, during the asbestos issue that Green Meadow had.
Do you know what the rate is at which they're recycling?
Fortunately, I haven't been involved in the facilities management of that building for over 4 years, so I don't know what they've been.
Yeah,
When that equipment was all provided.
Yeah, and I remember walking through it when we were going through that process of addressing asbestos, et cetera. All more to the point why we need a new school, like this.
Totally, but we do have 2 years where there are 500 kids who are in there, and my point is just that. The air purifiers are there, that's great, the filters are there, but the impact of blasting and construction vehicles driving by all day, every day and kicking up the dust.
Yeah.
You have to measure to know what the impact is.
Yeah.
And you need a good sensor to do that, and it sounds like Phil has said that he'd be willing to do that, which would be great.
Point taken, and I have confidence that if even reviewing through this monitoring or otherwise, if there needs to be more done. To
Mhm.
ensure the quality, I think we'll do that.
Dust control is also required. as part of it. So every time this construction, dust control is a problem issue. So here, if you want to get a planning board, we'll have to review that.
Any other questions on the Green Meadows School Building Project? Okay, then we will move on to item 15, which is the FY 26 policy statement as mandated by the charter.
So, Mr. Chair, you had allowed for this to be continued to the next meeting, which is tonight. Again, it's the kind of the standard procedure as dictated by the town charter for the select board to issue this policy statement, which is sort of sets a tone or an expectation of the select board going into the next fiscal year and planning for the next fiscal year. Per the guidance I got from the select board, I did forward the initial draft to the finance committee. I saw that Julian Pendergrass, the chair of the finance committee, had replied today, but I didn't get a chance to see what her reply was. And I was on last night's meeting, but I signed off when they started to get into like new business at the end. And so anyway, so it still stands. What you see in front of you tonight is the same that you saw a couple weeks ago.
Finance committee found the message sage and the statement agreeable, so looks like they're aligned. With no further recommendations, they said. So I think that we've got their endorsement of the message as drafted.
Okay.
Any comments or questions from the select board?
Yep.
Are we ready? Do we need to motion on this, or are you able to administer without a motion from the select board?
So I apologize, I didn't have that in the motion, but if you would like, you can take a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 budget policy statement as presented.
Motion to approve fiscal year 2026 policy statement as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 16, we have two correspondences, one from the golf course and one from Comcast. Any questions on either of the correspondences? They want to approve or accept rather?
Move to accept correspondences A and B as shown.
Second.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Moving on to item 17, we have two sets of minutes from the 17th and 24th of September. Any comments or questions on the two sets of minutes we have in front of us?
Move to accept and approve the meeting minutes of September 17th and 24th, 2024, as shown, and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor, Chris,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. And we will now move to the town administrator report.
All right, I'll keep it quick. Today we had a fantastic all-staff meeting and luncheon outside out back along the river. The conditions could have been better. And all the success of it goes towards Stephanie Duggan for wrangling the troops, setting up the place. That the town of Maynard was identified by the Massachusetts Municipal Association to host one of the legislative breakfasts, which is pretty cool. That we don't have to go very far for that, so I highly recommend everyone go if you can. It'll be at the fire station, So, that's Friday, October 18th.
I'm having trouble logging on for that one.
Oh, really?
I'll address that later and see it.
Yeah, weird.
There was a glitch, so if I
weird.
struggle again, I'll come back and see it.
It was difficult to get, it was difficult to get, confirmed for it.
Yeah.
So I ended up in like Leland, Mass. So I just,
It's a really confusing registration.
yeah, it was very difficult. So I sent an email to the girl from,
Yeah.
I can't remember her name, the woman from, MMA, and I just said that, please add me.
Yeah.
And she did, she got right back to me the next day. So
Her name is on there.
her name is on the phone, but it was very difficult.
Oh, or,
It's
Yeah.
Me.
You have to add your specific thing to a cart and you have to open a drop-down menu in order to get to the thing that
Yeah.
you want, if you want that meeting date.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's all auto defaults, I think, to whatever's at the top of the list. It's
That's
a very
awesome.
confusing
Yes.
registration.
I've been registering myself for MMA bets for a long time, so I don't think I'm surprised.
Yeah,
by any of it.
it's not easy.
Okay,
You have to work for
well, on that note, also, today opened for the MMA's annual meeting, so if you want to register to go to the annual meeting, January. Something at the end of January. Okay. You got it, you got it. Okay.
Usually the weekend before, the Friday, it starts the Friday before, MLK weekend.
Oh, maybe you're right.
That's usually when they do.
Usually it's the 21st, 22nd or something.
We're at the 23rd this year.
Yes.
January 24th.
Get into Wednesday, right?
23rd Thursday?
23rd is Thursday.
Yeah, so I register today, I usually go to I get there usually Thursday night, and then I go to Friday full thing. Yeah, so and it's in the new venue this year, it's in the Seaport District, it's at.
Yes, at the convention center.
Yeah.
And the Omni Hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Which one?
Yeah.
The Omni, there's an Omni in the Seaport, so I assume that's their
That's
thing.
cool.
Yeah,
Hotel.
it used to be at the Pines, right?
Yeah, that's cool, that's a nice change of pace. Hey, and then going on, so presidential elections coming up, my brand new town clerk is very confident, she's on it, she got ballots today, she's working at early voting should be soon. And then, we're doing a lot of road work, so everyone kind of keep your wits about you, Route 27 on both ends, because we have MassDOT doing the work at the intersection of, Parker and Great Road for Route 27, and then on the other end, I'm gonna keep calling it a Cat Cottage intersection, so, but that's made a lot of work. Although you're probably not gonna see a lot of change for a while, because the steel and all the, traffic lights themselves have yet to be coming in, and so whenever that comes in, that comes in.
So you don't know, yeah, that.
No, and that has just changed because of the dock workers strike, so
Might be well,
it could be longer than the winter, but we will see.
might be well. But so far, I think it looks good. I saw the grass, the hydro seed was there, so it's good. It's coming along.
It looks good.
Yeah.
So far, it still looks nice, but. With the light.
Be nice to have lights. And Manifest is Saturday. So, I hope to see you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Unless there's questions.
Any questions for the town administrator? All right, I have no updates for the chair report. I think Greg mentioned we had that's a pretty brief, pretty efficient meeting to prepare for a special town meeting. And so I'm looking forward to that. And Maynard Fest also this weekend before that. We'll go to board member reports. Chris,
Good, thanks.
Lindsay,
Good, thank you.
David,
All set, thank you.
Mike,
I'm gonna follow the precedent. Nothing to do.
You know, we had something too.
10 minutes worth.
Make a
all
motion.
right.
Second?
All in favor, Chris,
Yes, sir.
Lindsay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
and I'm yes as well. We're adjourned.